We are live.
And I am recording.
You're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
And we have another very special episode. We have the 2018 film Red Sparrow. Nathan, do you have a history with this movie at all?
No, I tried to watch it once, like a year ago, and I watched it for this podcast.
Okay.
My history with this movie is I think of Jennifer Lawrence as the main character in The Hunger Games as a teenager who was also like a movie that was real popular with my son. So to see Jennifer Lawrence now in all these bizarre sexual situations in this movie made me really uncomfortable. It's like, wait, should I be watching this? Like, what's going on?
I mean, it's almost 10 years removed from The Hunger Games.
I know, but I don't follow Jennifer Lawrence in any
Yeah.
other way. I remember her from The Hunger Games. I know she did a few other movies that I didn't watch.
No reason this
this
is kind of coming off the tail end of her doing The Hunger Games, and she was in kind of the X-Men New Class reboot of X-Men that they did. She was Mystique in those.
That's right.
So she was doing a lot of those. So this was a pretty like brave choice of a movie to like, now we're going to do a psychosexual CIA thriller.
Yeah. So this movie just made me uncomfortable. That wasn't the only reason. The other things about it was kind of dumb. Not my favorite movie.
Did you know of the book at all or read that?
I knew of the book, yes.
Okay.
Book is very different from what I know of it.
Well, I didn't get to the end. I wouldn't say the book's very different, but there is like some bizarre choices.
In the book, it's like she has some kind of cognitive disconnect.
Right, I'll explain what it is.
Okay.
So this is the wild thing that they didn't use for this movie, because this is clearly something put in the book where, okay, this would obviously be better or more suited for a movie, and they don't fucking use it at all. Okay. So there's a condition called synesthesia where
that's it. Okay. I was thinking dissonance, but okay, yeah.
Your brain will cross your senses. So you'll hear music and you'll see color. Now, mostly this happens in people who are drug addicts, and it's like kind of misfiring of neurons and stuff like that. I don't know it as like a congenitive disorder, but probably, I don't know. In the book, it's kind of like a superpower where it's like it's like her subconscious is like projected onto people, so she'll literally see like color, like it'll be red when like they're angry or whatever, or like it'll be blue and it's like, or yellow, and like if it's yellow she's like, oh, I know they're lying, but it's kind of represented to her visually. She doesn't have to like,
what a nightmare. Okay.
And it's also, it helps her with like memory and stuff like that. So like in the book, it's almost a superpower rather than like a mental disorder. But her father's kind of afraid of her because like, well, you're different. You can see things we can't.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to know per se when someone's lying to me, because it's part of the adventure is finding out. Like I could think they're lying to me just based on like, oh, they're acting irrationally. They're deceptive.
Well, I mean, in the book, yeah, it's just perfect. But like, I imagine in a reality where this exists, it's like, well, her subconscious could be wrong too, but that's just not presented in the book. So.
No. And that's subconscious. It's always right. Every crazy person will tell you stuff.
Oh man, I saw this crazy thing today where a guy was talking about like, he's like, well, so why are you in jail? He's like, okay, these 10 guys are going to rape this woman, and she said, I need help or they're going to keep on doing it. So he burnt the house down to try to get it, let her escape. And then I went to jail for arson. And it's like, oh, so what happened to the 10 guys and the one lady? It's like, oh, they're in my head. I'm schizophrenic.
Yeah. I just told you a great story. You really, I could tell you, like, move closer to me. Your eyes got bigger. It's like, I knew you were into this. By the way, I'm nuts. So what really happened? I just really wanted to rape this lady. I decided to burn
there wasn't 10 guys and there wasn't a lady either, as far as I know. I don't know. It was like a 15-second clip that was just kind of like a perfect short film for that.
Oh yeah. It's like those videos on YouTube, like, this man is a true sociopath, and it's like police interview tapes, and it's like, see how this guy doesn't have any feelings, and sometimes it's like, oh yeah, based on the crimes he's accused of, if he actually committed these crimes, because you don't know, this guy's clearly a psycho, or this guy's just really just lying to get out of something, and it's like he didn't do whatever horrible thing they're accusing him of. Most of the time, though, they're complete psychos, and they're like, oh, I want to tell you about how I killed her because it's cool and look how special I am. It's like, whoa, that's dark. I don't. Yeah.
So this came out March
That's
2nd.
not synesthesia, though. That's just
This came out March 2nd, 2018. Like I remember seeing the trailer, and I don't know, maybe it's how they cut the trailer, but I remember kind of like passing this off as like, oh, this is just some Cold War thriller, not knowing it's supposed to be like Putin's Russia and everything like that.
Putin's a character in the book, I think.
He's a character in the book, and they meet him at some point. So
nice.
Where they're like talking to him, and he's like, yeah, I did KGB stuff. I know how this works, and you just tell him, just get it done. So he's not like a central character. He's just like the guy. He's just the ultimate boss you don't want to piss off.
Yeah, it's not like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, like a historical figure. Well, he's like not a historical figure. He's still alive, we think. I don't know.
Yeah, nor is it Crooked, where it's like, oh, he's a bad guy, but behind the scenes, he's actually doing good.
Crooked was amazing. I've always liked Nixon for the wrong reasons, and then with Crooked, I could like him because it's like, oh, he was really a sorcerer.
Directed by Francis Lawrence, who we last saw his movie Constantine.
Yes.
Mostly a music video director. He's from Austria, I believe. He did all the I just completely, what was their film? He did all the Hunger Games movies except for the first one.
Yeah. Everyone in this is a Hunger Games alumni.
Yeah,
He's much. Just born in Austria. He's actually
Oh, okay. Well, I remember thinking the weird thing is that like both her and Jennifer, the director and Jennifer Lawrence had the same last name. It was like, are they related? It's like, nope, just a coincidence. Yeah. Because that would be weird if they're related, especially with this movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially with like the characters and stuff. It's like
actually that'd work way too well with the Vanya character.
This movie would become like this is the ultimate like meta movie. Like, it is about incest, literally. Not literal incest, but mental incest.
Yeah, I really liked Catching Fire, the second Hunger Games movie, so much so that I'd never bothered watching the Mockingjay movie part 1 or 2 because I heard they weren't that good. So I left it as the perfect, the middle one, and never watched the other ones.
You're like a Fellowship of the Rings guy. It's like, that's all I needed to see. I watched the last hour of Return of the King and wrapped it up. It's like, yep, I'm a Lord of the Rings aficionado. Wait, you read the books? Let me tell you. Get away.
What about the unpublished material? I have so much more to tell you.
Yeah. Tom Bombadil, damn your eyes. I actually got like almost physically assaulted. It's like, yeah, I kind of like Return of the Fellowship of the Rings. I think they do a good job. Oh, what about the whole Barrow-wites and Tom Bombadil? It's like, dude, calm the fuck down. Okay, you can read they didn't like erase it from the book. You can still read it in the book. They're never going to take the books away. At least that's what I thought naively in like 2010 when I was having that conversation. Now they're editing the books, but I don't know if that's just fear mongering or not. Usually it's fear mongering, but
yeah. Well, and weird family rights issues. It's like, we've done nothing our whole lives, and we will continue to do so.
Yeah, I mean, this has been like an eternal Christmas for me. I'm not giving this up. It's like weird. Have you ever worked a day in your life? I have a degree in art history. But, the answer is no. Sorry, all you art history guys out there. I don't want to do it. I'm sure it's hard work. But you're not going to convince a guy like me, so or my brother, really. I mean, go ahead and try. Send us comments. We won't.
I just find it weird that it's like Amazon spent like $1 billion to get to Lord of the Rings thing, and then for some reason they actually still don't have the rights to Lord of the Rings. It's like, well, that's not worth it.
Strangest, most schizophrenic. Like, our AI is writing all the contracts for this stuff now, like, completely like it's like harder to interpret than the Dead Sea Scrolls what you have the rights to, And then whatever you do have the rights to, you make the most boring thing you've made since Tales from the Loop. And it's like, wow, you really could have done a lot more. Because supposedly Jeff Bezos loves this. It's like,
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings changed his life. It's like, dude, I mean, I don't understand he wasn't like involved in the production or writing, but if I was that guy with this kind of money and they came to me with those scripts and that story, I'd be like, wait a minute, hold on. I've actually read the books. Remember, these changed my life. I love them. This does not seem, it's not horrible. I don't hate it for the reasons other people hate it. It just was everything I was afraid it was going to be. And the only thing I was afraid it was going to be was boring. And that was like, I don't care if they have like, you know, mixed race people. I know when you're saying you don't like that, it's like, well, you're just a racist. Okay. I get it. But it's just, it was boring was the problem.
Well, I just still got
to do with this, but you know.
Well, also like Jeff Bezos was a fan of The Expanse, and they didn't let him finish that, which is like, I think for like a tenth of the budget that you spend on, or even less, 100th of the budget you spent on Lord of the Rings, you could have finished The Expanse.
Well, if I had his money and I said I was a fan of The Expanse, those actors would like, you got a job for the next 20 years. Like, you're not, we're filming all the books, past, present, and future. And if the writers don't catch up, we're just going to start doing our own stuff. If I had that kind of money and I proclaimed my love for something, like, because if I had like billions of dollars, it's like Ridley Scott would not have the rights to Blade Runner, neither would Warner Brothers. It would just be the whole Blade Runner universe. Like, I don't care if it loses money. We're telling the story forever because I have $75 billion. I'm just going to hire French people and we're just going to do that. Hell, we'll shoot it in French. I don't care. That's what being a true fan is. If you have billions of dollars, it's like you do whatever you want to.
Be the ultra patron.
It's like, this movie is for me. It's never being released publicly. I just paid everyone very well to make it. It's mine. It's my personal Wu-Tang Clan album. Never going to see Blade Runner 21700 or whatever it was.
So back to Red Sparrow. The cinematographer was Joe Williams, who basically just I don't know. He's like, he did Limitless, and he worked with Francis Lawrence on like all the Hunger Games stuff too. Yeah. So he works a lot with him. Written by
Hunger Games movies are pretty cool. I watched them all with my son in the theater.
Yeah,
because
like,
he was really into that stuff.
Yeah, they're great for what is like a kind of a young adult Running Man. Like, it does a great job, and they just kind of and like the Hunger and Catching Fire is even better, where they're just like, well, this isn't just for teenagers anymore. They kind of made them, even though it's still ridiculous, it was just kind of like a better production for those rest of them, where it was like, oh, it was a real movie.
And that's my favorite part of the Hunger Games was always like Donald Sutherland. Like, that's my favorite character in the Hunger Games movies.
Yeah,
I read the books along with my son because it's like, yeah, I can do this, because I wouldn't do Harry Potter. I was like, well, you go ahead, that's your thing. I said, I have Lord of the Rings, you do Harry Potter. I'm not going to read along. But Hunger Games, for some reason, was compelling enough for it. It's like, yeah, I read all the books with my son, and we watched the movies. And this
well,
is
even though they're not that violent, like, the whole idea of it is like, oh, you're killing children.
Yeah, it's a horribly violent concept. And you want to know the really weird thing? You know where Suzanne Collin lives?
Where?
Sandy Hook, Connecticut. It's like, that's strange.
Wait, where is it?
She lives in Sandy Hook, Connecticut.
Oh, Sandy. Oh, I thought. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you said San Diego, Connecticut. I'm like, the fuck is that play? Okay.
Well, the woman who writes a novel about a game that involves the sacrifice of children so a government can manipulate people lives in Sandy Hook. Now, I'm not making those inferences and connections. Other people are, but it is kind of weird. It's like, huh.
Two famous things, all bad.
Yeah. She brought Alex Jones down with those books.
This was written by Justin Hayth, who did the adaptation. He worked a lot with Gore Verbinski. Like, he did a couple of his movies before he stopped directing for some weird reason. I hope he's okay. Like, last thing he made, so like, this guy wrote the A Cure for Wellness, and that was the last movie Gore Verbinski did, and that was in like 2016. He hasn't directed a movie since, so I feel like
Gore Verbinski did the
he did like The Ring, and then He did the American Ring, and then he did like all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Or Verbinski. Okay, I'm thinking of someone else. Okay.
Yeah. He also did like Weatherman and Rango.
I've never seen Rango, but I've heard great things about it.
Oh, I tried watching it once. It's super weird, so I'll give it that credit. I always like things that are. It's like this is for children. It's like this isn't for anybody.
Yeah, drug addict.
This is for one person, and I'm glad you exist. Based on a book by Jason Matthews, who I guess was a real CIA operative or something. So he's got that clout.
He retired from the CIA.
And he died like a few years ago from like a congenitive like brain disorder that was kind of it's like that's suspicious. Like no, it's genetics. But
he was killed for his truth. He worked for the CIA for 33 years.
Huh.
But he was one of those guys that was like a diplomat in different embassies.
Yeah.
But he was like a cultural. Like, oh, yeah, I'm here to tell you about culture and talk to you about whatever information you want to give us.
Cast, of course, we got Jennifer Lawrence, probably at the height of her career, and so she does this. Like, she had to have lobbied for this because this seems like a very brave role for someone to take on. So.
She got paid $20 million.
Oh, okay, well that helped too.
Yeah.
Joel Edgerton, who's in a lot of things. I kind of think of him as like, hey, what if Emmett Walsh was in Shape?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Good. Yeah. See someone I like. I like to see this guy. I didn't even know he was Australian.
Huh, okay.
I like read about him. It's like,
wait,
oh, this guy.
Well, he's got like this weird like cherubic face where it's like he kind of looks like kind of overweight, but he's got abs. So that's why I say he's like the in shape Emmett Walsh.
Yeah.
Also he's great. Like if you have a movie that takes place in the 60s, you get this guy, you throw sideburns on him and he looks like he belongs. I don't know what it is.
I'm trying to think of what my favorite movie with. I remember he was in Zero Dark 30. Cause he's got those mean eyes, his eyes look strange. Like they're kind of like
dead, like a doll's eyes.
No, the way his there's something about the way his eyes look. Who else does this? Oh man, I'm drawing a blank here. But I'm trying. Oh, who's the guy? Who's the most famous actor right now? The guy who was in Titanic.
Oh, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, him and Leonardo DiCaprio have the same eyes, where they can look like nice guys or really mean. And I don't know why that is. There's something about their eyes and the way they look, but it's like they can do both at the same time.
It's like it got a shine to it, like it's a black hole just absorbing everything. So they're actually kind of dangerous, even though they're kind of lively or something like that.
There was something about. I didn't know he was even Australian. Because like I said, I remember him. He did that sci-fi thing with the autistic kid, Midnight Special, where the kid was actually an alien.
Yeah,
he was like he was like the guy's brother in that, and then he did the It Comes at Night, which was just kind of like a weird psychological movie about a apocalyptic plague, where it's there was a lot of things going on. I think he was in the New Thing too, the one from 2010.
Yeah. That's what it says here. I remember.
So I've seen this guy in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. You'll recognize him, but he's never really he's not really a leading man guy. He's just kind of like almost a character actor. But
wasn't he in one of the Star Wars movies too? Like as a bit player?
I don't know.
Like the last of the Lucas trilogy, the prequel trilogy.
Let's see. Control F star. Oh no, war. We're getting a hit somewhere. Where is it at? Oh, he's in Star Wars Episode 3.
Okay, and who did he play?
It says Owen Lars. Oh, so he's it's Uncle Owen.
Oh, so he played the young Uncle Owen. Okay, now I remember. He must have worn a fat suit for that. Guy's kind of a thin. Okay. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I just knew he had a Star Wars. I was like, I remember those eyes. It's his eyes. I remember. Bill Edgerton, get in contact with me. I want to learn more about your eyes.
And Matthias Schoenaerts.
No idea. He looks like a Russian. He looks like Vladimir Putin.
Yeah. He has weird kind of facial features where it's like he's Eastern European.
Yeah. Well, he looks like under his eyes were cut. There's something going on with his eyes too, but it's not the shape of his eyes. It looks like he has cuts under him. And I don't know if that was something they did for the movie or the guy really looks like that. He's a Belgian guy, but yeah.
He's a what?
He's from Belgium.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Act 1, we open on Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh, let's not forget about Charlotte Rampling, one of my favorite. Older...
Oh yeah, we'll get to people. The cat. I only list 3 of the top billed cast according to IMDb. That's never always the most famous people in the movie because we have much more famous people coming up. Yeah. So that's just. I like. Yeah, this is a flawed version of the podcast where I list 3 people that IMDb says that is the top billed cast when clearly they aren't. But anyways, that's. But yeah, we'll have you because I remember writing her down. Even though she has a very small part, she is very effective in her small role here.
She's I like her a lot.
So Act 1, we open on Jennifer Lawrence. She plays Dominika Agrova.
Yeah.
It's like Ego Rova. And she's listening to opera music and meditating. We have an intercut between her and the Joel Edgerton character who plays Nate Nash. He gets a phone call and there's like a coded message on it, which is kind of interesting. He ends up, I probably put it here later on, but he writes down the letters and then he like twirls it on a pen and then somehow it gives him a message, which I even though they focused the camera directly on it, I didn't see what the message was, but I thought, well, that's a cool idea anyways.
Yeah, it's just right quick. It's like, sorry, we are performing a test. Sorry for the interruption. And then it's like Baker, Delta, Alpha, Tango. It's like no one's really that fast. Like because I'm kind of dyslexic. It's like I could never be a secret agent. I can't do this stuff this fast.
Well, no, I mean I'm talking about like when he writes those down and he puts it on a pin and swirls it around. They zoom in on the message and I didn't see the message.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, it's supposed to be like a one-time pad.
Okay.
Because he has like he writes down the letters and then like the cipher code or whatever is like in the spine of where the paper is. The things you rip off normally. It's like it's kind of clever. I know what it is. It's old school like spy stuff, but don't ask me how one-time pads work. I suck at math. So if you just make up anything, I'm gonna be like, yeah, that's it. Because I don't know.
Dominika helps her sickly mom, played by Jolie Richardson, who we last saw in no, I'm forgetting it. The space movie with the evil ship.
Oh, Event Horizon?
Event Horizon, yeah, she's in Event Horizon.
I thought that was her.
That's she plays Nina, she's the mom. Here's Nate decodes the letter when he like wraps it around a pin, and it's like because how the pin is, it says something. Then he grabs a gun and heads out. I should probably mention
Which is something I've always wanted to do, like grab a gun and head out. Like I have plenty of guns around here, as anyone who listens to the show knows. I've never really had to grab one and head out.
I should probably say that we're in Russia.
Yeah,
that isn't obvious.
Well, it could be in Brighton Beach too.
Yeah.
You never know.
And then Dominika heads out to a performance, and she's like getting dressed and doing makeup in the back room. Which later on we see like the it's kind of interesting. I don't know if this says anything about Russia or whatever, but like their locker room, like their lockers are like cages. They're just empty cages so you can see everything, because it's like, well, you're a part of the government, so nobody needs secrets, so why have walls and concealment anywhere?
Yeah, can't. Not allowed. I think this is more to show that like Russia has always, I mean, I don't know, this was a style choice, Maybe they actually filmed this at the Bolshoi. I doubt they did.
Yeah.
2018. I don't think our relations were that good. But when was this movie made? I'm sorry. It's 2018.
Yeah, 2018 is when it released, so it probably been making around 2017.
I doubt our relations were good enough with Russia at that time to have, because the Crimea invasion was in like what 2012.
Yeah,
that's when
but
it started breaking down.
Yeah, but if Trump is an agent of the Russians,
I forgot, like Trump and Putin are the same person. Like it's gonna be like Mission Impossible, where they just it's Vladimir Putin. It's like, hey, you did a great New York accent, Vladimir. I'm not gonna get involved in that anyway.
Well, Trump was elected in 2018, right? So
yeah.
it wouldn't have helped or hurt them or whatever.
2016, I don't know.
Was it 2016? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Wait, yeah, it's 2016. Okay, yeah. So yeah, Trump was in power by then. So I don't know. Who knows?
I sit in a small room and build models and watch like sci-fi channels. I'm not in touch with the world.
But I don't know. You know, if any Russian officials read this script, they'd be like, "You're not filming here."
No, I doubt that would pass. But it does say something about Russia, which I think like the guy who wrote this book knew a lot about Russia, and it's like, yeah, the Bolshoi is beautiful. It's like a lot of gold painted stuff, a lot of people dancing. It's great, but the skeleton is just like this decomposing, death. And that's Russia. It is literally the ultimate Potemkin village. It's like it looks strong, underneath it's weak.
Well, it's like, even like at the start of this movie, like you don't like until you see a laptop, you don't know what decade it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Russia is just kind of like kept in time like that because, well, we're not replacing all this crap we built under the Soviet Union. So
this was mainly shot in Czechoslovakia and Austria.
Okay.
And I guarantee you the Austrian parts were like the theaters and stuff, like, because Austria still like preserves their culture like that. Because I don't think anyone has anything like that in the world anymore, except maybe the Austrians and of course the Russians. Because the Russians love their past because they have no future, so they gotta love their past.
Dominica is like a ballet dancer of some renown. I don't know how far that goes because I couldn't tell you one ballet dancer, let alone a Russian ballet dancer.
I have no idea. I know it's important to the Russians, and they make a big deal out of it. So I assume whenever something is important to the Russians, either one, it involves money or sex, and two, it is false. So that's what I've learned about the Russians. And I don't mean the Russian people and the people from Russia and all that. I live and work with a lot of these people around here in America, and they're fine people. I'm talking mainly about their government and their officials. So everything I say in the rest of this podcast, which is going to be shitting on Russia, is not an attack on the Russian people. It's an attack on their government. Just like I hate the government of my country sometimes. Doesn't mean I hate everyone who lives here, but sometimes I wonder about their intelligence.
Nate is being followed in a dark alley like it's a car on a pedestrian walkway, so it's very suspicious.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, do you think they're following us? Huh.
Well, it's on a
brush pass. Yeah, absolutely. In clear view of like the Moscow police,
because it's like a brick walkway that can fit a car, but there's clearly benches and trees. The car is not supposed to be there.
No. That's why I hate this movie. A lot of stupid shit like this. It's like the worst CIA. Like, you could pull me out of my house and put me on a plane to Russia and say, hey, you're in the CIA now, you need to do this. And it's like, I'm not going up this walk path with this obvious police car following me and meeting my contact that the cardinal of the Kremlin that I've worked 20 years to develop. And it's like, yeah, this is why this movie sucks. But go ahead.
So yeah, Nate, because they're about, he's trying to he makes a brush pact with his contact, so he gets like some paper, and then he sees the cops are about to arrest his contact, and so he fires a gun in the ground to like create a diversion. Which
because in other countries that's weird. In America, where that happens all the time, everyone's shooting. Great, the police will react to that in other countries.
It's just a dex pop. He just put 4 on the ground to just make sure, let the ground know who's boss.
Yeah, because they don't love freedom in Russia, remember.
He's just doing a quick depth test of the ground.
When in reality, all we would have to do was take off running really fast, and the police would immediately vector on him.
Yeah.
Didn't need to shoot the gun off, which clearly would like, oh, this is obviously a foreign operative or somebody dangerous. Like, just give up the whole thing right there. All you'd have to do is take off running, and most likely the Moscow police would be so drunk they couldn't catch you. So,
and it is different. The book, it's less like spastic, but I wouldn't necessarily say like, oh, the book's smarter, or they missed all the smartness of the book. I think the book's kind of a pretty standard, like, procedural CIA drama. Yeah. There's some interesting stuff, like the synesthesia stuff is interesting, and they get rid of that. But all the other stuff is like, oh, it's pretty standard. There's nothing this guy did other than like his experience behind the book gives it more credence. But what he created is nothing different than like what anybody else would do.
Yeah, Tom Clancy did this like not knowing anything really. He didn't have a 33-year career in the Directorate of Operations of the CIA. He just was a really good storyteller.
Well, I think that's why I don't like you compare this to Clancy. Like I like definitely prefer Clancy, but I think it's mostly because what Clancy does is put billion-dollar war machines and aim them at each other, and that's much more exciting to me than just like people being mad at each other and having sex all the time.
Yeah. I'm going to compare. I did not read this whole book. I read parts of it, but I'm going to compare this very sharply with Cardinal of the Kremlin, which is a cool but completely fantasy, like, oh yeah, this is how we really undermined the Soviets or whatever. It's like both these things are fantasies, but the Cardinal of the Kremlin is more compelling. It's not necessarily better, but it's because it's completely unrealistic. But yeah, so this is, and I'm also gonna like compare and contrast this to The Americans, which is another show I liked a lot, but it was kind of crazy at the same time. But it was really like, oh, I love it, but it's nuts.
So like the police chase Nate because he fires a gun off, and then he like makes his way to the embassy and like surrenders himself, like trying to put his hands above his head, screaming, "American, American!" So remember, folks, if you want to get away with something, just run at the embassy yelling "American."
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I mean, I've never been, except for Canada. I've never been to it. But the next time I go to Canada, I'm just gonna run at the embassy and be like, "American." Well, not run, but kind of fast walk. I'm gonna waddle towards the embassy, American, and they'll be like, "What are you doing? Canada's not even a hostile country." It's like, I just wanted to try this in a foreign country. It's like, well, good, you're gonna go to prison for 20 years.
And then they would come back to Dominica, where she gets her leg broken by her dance partner, and then she's taken to a hospital. A very mean break.
A brutal scene in the like it totally takes you out of the movie for a second. Yeah. Like, fuck, wow.
Yeah, this guy basically does like a Mortal Kombat dive kick into her leg.
Now I'm gonna think it's like the whole chorus started playing.
Yeah, but like, yeah, your leg just like snaps, like it is bent like 45 degrees to the left. Her left leg is more left now.
That does happen, as someone who's seen his son's arm turn completely around backwards when you break both the bones, and it's like, yeah, that can happen. It's horrible.
Yeah, she's taken to the hospital. We cut back to Nate. His cover's blown, so he's like, he's talking to his bosses, and so they're gonna send him back to the States. It's like, hey, you're done with covert work.
Yeah, because you're an idiot. It's like, even I was like, yeah, you should. Me too. Forklift driver here, you're done. Covert work. This is shooting the gun into the ground was totally unnecessary.
Here they also make it like he sounded like he blew his assets cover, but actually he didn't, because they never got a clear picture of him. So he's actually fine. He's just, there's now suspicion in Russia. It's like, oh, one of us is a mole. So
yeah. Well, actually, in Russia there should always be suspicion. All of them are moles because their loyalty is to the highest bidder. And it's not like we're a whole lot better either over here, but we're a little better because we actually like have a less corrupt society so
Yeah.
far. You know, give it
I mean,
time.
comparatively.
Yeah, comparatively.
Like that's always like a thing they talk about. Like in other countries, like bribery is expected to get things going. Where here, it's like if you bribe somebody, you can go to jail for bribing somebody. Now that doesn't mean nobody will take your bribe.
Yeah.
It's just unlikely to happen. We got shit to do. A bribe is just so much time in your day. If you take a bribe, that's forever. You now have to do this forever, hide these things forever. It's just more efficient to not take a bribe.
I have actually been someone who was I have been solicited for a bribe. Now, nothing great. It was $60 to let one truck dock before another one. It was a foreigner, and I won't say where he was from, but I'll try to do the accent. I do not come empty-handed, my friend. Is what I was told. I was like, "What are you talking about?" There was like 60 trucks waiting because I'm literally the big dumb shit American, and it's like, "What are you talking about?" Because I immediately go into that role because I want every foreigner to think I'm stupid, like, because it's a lot easier that way. And it's like, how about I come in? And I pull in and I leave. I have, you know, he's like tapping his wrist like time or whatever. And it's like, well, what do you think those other guys out there want? He goes, but me and you, we have an understanding. And I was like, no, we don't. And literally he showed me money. I was like, I'm not giving up my pension over this. I'm sorry. You know, you're in slot 15 in 45 minutes. That's the best I can do. And it's like, and this guy was mad. He was like, oh, fuck this. These stupid rules, these stupid man. He doesn't see. You know, he's like talking on his phone. He's like, I cannot get out of here. This asshole, he won't let me through. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You asshole now? Okay, cool. So I made sure he got unloaded extra slow. It's like, hey, take your time with that stuff. So I was like the anti. Now, if it was like $300, oh yeah, $60, really? I mean, come on. So yeah, I understand. Like, yeah, in corrupt societies, like, and like I said, this guy was pissed. It's like, oh, he won't take it. It's like, yeah, it's not enough, but it's not because I'm like reading the Bible here. It's like, yeah, it's not enough money. Do you realize the kind of trouble I could get in? What are the other guys going to do out there when I just start waving you in?
See, bribery works at the highest level where it's like, you know, we're going to contribute to your campaign and it's millions of dollars, and it's all of like its own ballet dance. And it's like, because the number's so high and everything's so ridiculous, it's just accepted as like, well, that's just how it happens.
Yeah, it's just the cost of doing business. It's like taxes. Yeah, no. So I've been commissioned for like low level bribes by people who came from horrible
foreign assets.
Well, people that came from foreign shithole countries that probably have like even advanced degrees from whatever universities where they're from, and they're in America driving trucks. But they're trying to apply the same logic that made their country a place they want to leave, and they're angry that you're like, I'm not participating, and basically because it's not enough money, not because I'm immune to bribes, but because it's like, that's $60, really, dude? That's not even like a good meal at a nice fuck that.
Dominica wakes up to her leg in traction, and then she's distraught by it.
Well, it's like that Halo traction too.
Yeah.
Where they have to immobilize it with a frame and like, you know, and I don't know why they did it that way, because, you know, like I said, I've been through this with my son. It's like, no, they just put steel in there and bolt it all back together. Like, they don't do that, but it
could be the most visually effective. It could be a thing where it's like, no, this is Russian medicine. Like, yeah, it's free, but, you know, it's kind of behind the times. I don't know for real. I don't know. There's something.
Yeah, my son's arm doesn't look dramatic unless you see the X-ray and you're like, what the hell did they do? It's like, no, that's steel reinforced joints now. That's just how that works.
There's also just magic
destroyed too.
There's also just magic medical procedures nowadays where it's like, we used to have to like cut you open to do open heart surgery, and now they can just shove balloons in every orifice in your body and fix you.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I'm like, they're already signing me up for what do you want? Actually, I don't have artery blockage. I'm very lucky that way. But I have other problems.
So we get titles, Red Sparrow, and then we get 3 months later. Dominica's walking around now. She has a cane, so her mom also has a cane. So it's kind of this weird, sad thing. We don't know. I don't know. They don't say what the mom has, does she? It seems to be like kind of like
It seems like an
cerebral
MS,
palsy or something. Like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
some kind of degenerative, like I don't have strength disease.
Yeah.
Like that Lou Gehrig's, which is like those are my nightmare diseases. I have like a list of 10 diseases, and they're in my phone. It's like if I ever get diagnosed with these are what you call pistol diseases, because I am eating a bullet before I die. And it's not like out of hate, rage, anger, or anything. It's just like I'm not dying that way, where I'm a prisoner in my own body. No. And I think she has one of those spectrum of diseases where you're just like physically weak.
Yeah.
Because your muscles are dying or something.
Yeah, it's like the thing that Michael J. Fox has, I think, which I think is MS.
Yeah, it's something.
Vanya, the uncle shows up. Vanya has a job for her now that her ballet career is dead, which now she's going to be working, like, doing.
They never say, but it would be the FSB.
Or what's the SVRs? What did they call it in this movie?
That's the military version of it.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But Russia's weird because you have like the FSB is like it's like the Bureau of State Security, but it's also militarized. And you have the SVR, which is like the military intelligence, but they're both militarized. So it's weird. I don't understand how it works anymore. I knew how the KGB worked, but I don't know how this works.
Well, in the book, they explain it that like the KGB isn't anymore, but the SVR is what replaced it. And so she wants to be an SVR agent. And so she goes through the training, but then they make her go through Sparrow training. But she wanted to make sure that she had SVR training before. Here, that's not a thing. It's just like, it's all the same thing. So,
yeah.
Which, you know, this is already kind of a long movie. So it's like, yeah, let's hurry it along.
Let's talk.
She gets an envelope with a recording, which her replacement at the ballet, Sonia, like her and Dominica's dance partner broke her leg. They planned on breaking her leg the whole time just so she could get the role from her, which it's weird that they were looking for that, or they just incidentally had that, or did they plan this all along?
Yeah, you never know. That's the problem with this movie. It tries to do the wheels within wheels thing.
Yeah.
But it also like doesn't make sense at a certain point. It's like, oh, are they just opportunistically like, oh yeah, we can get her in here. She's a ballerina. She'd be good at sex spy because ballerinas are, you know, thin and like
it's all about body movement. Yeah, and they look
Okay, so here's how I understand it. The SVR is like our CIA. Okay. Like that's external intelligence, and we have FBI, which that's like internal intelligence, but ours also like crossover in all kinds of weird ways, so you don't know either. I think here it's a little more formal. Like if you commit terrorism in the United States, that's the FBI.
Yeah.
But the CIA also knows about you, but they're not supposed to operate inside the United States. But they do. And they don't cooperate with the FBI. But now, supposedly under Homeland Security, everyone's friends. And as we know from all the books we've read about, you know, intelligence agents and FBI agents, it's like these people don't have huge egos, and they're happy with one another. So.
It's one big team. We're all pulling together.
Yeah, it's like a big football team, all driving towards the goal.
All specialty players, all committed to the same goal.
Yep.
So Dominica starts spying on Sonia and Constantine. That's her dance partner and the one replacement. They're having sex in a sauna, and then she just beats them severely with a cane. So much for like, they're dead, right? But apparently not. So
apparently that cane went from being like a hollow aluminum cane that someone with a busted leg could use into something filled with lead based on the damage it caused. But I think Dominica reacted appropriately. Because if I worked, I did like that in this movie. It's like, oh, I've worked for this all my life since I was like 8 years old. Because I know I did look up like Bolshoi ballerinas. How long do they train? Oh, since they're like little girls. Like that's the muscle memory is insane. And it's like, yeah, if someone sabotaged that for me, I would take a hammer to their skull. Kind of what she did. So for me, for that character, for Dominica, it's like, oh, I respect her more now, not less, because it's like if I dedicated my life to that and somebody stole it from me just to sleep with someone and or get moved up to the first place on the roster, yeah, I'd beat their heads in with a hammer too, because you basically ruined my life.
But they ever have some remorse here, so she goes home and sees the blood on her hands, and then she goes and reports it as an accident. It's like, yeah, something happened at the theater.
I don't know if that was remorse or just covering herself.
Yeah,
because if they bled to death, see, because here's the thing with violence, you can beat people and break their joints and really mess them up, but if they don't die, it's a whole different level of investigation than if you have two corpses.
Yeah,
that really like puts a big spotlight on things. I mean, these are things I've read in books,
but
so.
I don't know. In this movie, it doesn't seem like corpses don't seem to be a problem for anybody.
No, it's Russia. It's like they're used to corpses. They won World War II on a literal mountain of corpses. If you stack them up, it would be like a mountain. Like people would climb up it and die because they needed oxygen. Yeah, that's the Russian mindset.
Dominica gets home and her mom's like fallen and no one was around to help her get up, and so because of the help that was provided by the dance company, and now they've immediately cut that off after like, I don't know, 2 hours. I guess technically 3 months has gone by, so 3 months and 2 hours the help is gone.
This seems to resonate more with me as like an example of the American healthcare system more than the corruption of the Soviet. That could just be my own mind working.
Dominica
I've been married to someone for 25 years who works in the American healthcare system. It's brutal. The KGB has nothing on health insurance companies in America.
Dominica meets with Vanya for another job. He wants her to seduce a target, and so she goes
blood relation, mind you. This is her uncle.
Yeah,
it's like, I want you to go to try to screw some guy who's dangerous. Like he's considered a threat to the Soviet state, and it's like, do you know how bad a person you have to be? Not the Soviet. How bad a person you have to be a threat to Putin's Russia?
Yeah,
it's like, oh, you're practically eating babies at that point.
Yeah, essentially, he's like a gangster that wasn't playing ball with Putin for some reason. Like it was beneficial to not do that, which is crazy. It's like that guy's stealing from the government to give to anybody that's willing to do his dirty
and what's
work.
He doing? Like just bringing heroin into the country by, like in a like a freighter, like a kind of troop transport or whatever. It's like, what is this guy not working Putin for? Even at a 50% tax, you'd still be a billionaire. If you had to pay Putin a 50% VIG, you would still be bringing in billions. Like, why wouldn't you play ball with this guy?
He's suspicious that she's there, because it's Russia. You should just be suspicious of everything, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, if I had to go to Russia, if someone like cleaned my room, I would like go at him with the end of a mop handle. Like, are you here to kill me? Such a weird place.
But she convinces him that she's there to see him because like her ballet career, and she's desperate. So she's alone with him now because he commands her or he gets rid of his guards, and he commands her to undress. He starts filling up her surgical scar and then like licks it, and then he just rapes her.
Very uncomfortable part of this movie.
Yeah. And then a biker guy just shows up and like Garrett's the hell out of him.
Yeah, Garrett's him to the point like he starts like he went through like the
like half his neck. Yeah, like half his neck is like cut through with the Garrett.
It's like, man, these guys from Daft Punk aren't screwing around.
And yeah, she gets covered in blood, and she gets dressed, and then she leaves with the biker guy. The biker guy shoots. They're like down in the parking garage, and some guy's like, "Hey, who are you?" and just shoots them with a silenced pistol, and they get out of there.
One-handed, which like, oh, that's impressive. I've fired silenced pistols. They're really hard to aim, and the bullets don't follow the same trajectory. Like, this is pure movie, but that's cool.
She's taken back to a safe house. Here, Vanya and General Korchnoi, played by Jeremy Irons.
Cool.
They discuss Dominica's fate, where like Korchnoi just wants her dead, and Vanya wants to use her as a spy asset. I think he like the only way he can convince Korchnoi not to kill her is like, well, she's my niece, and he's like, you're stupid.
Jeremy Irons nails it. He's like the Russian general guy with like European glasses. Don't ask me why. I know those are really expensive, like those kind of shaded European, like Gucci. I'm not sure who makes them. The name escapes me, but yeah, those are like $1,000 glasses he's wearing that are constantly shaded all the time. Like every creepy Russian general, just look on the news. It's like, oh, this guy nailed it. Like he got the look down perfect.
And then Vanya goes and talks with Dominika, and he base officer like, you can train to be a spy for us, or you can die. She's like, all right, well, training it is. Thanks, uncle.
Yeah. Thanks, family member. Well, tell me, how would I die? It's like, what are the, it's like, it's not even a question. It's so ridiculous.
Well, you saw what that guy just did, so, we'll just let him have you. He'll come up with something imaginative.
Yeah, being you were raped, like physically violated, and then this guy literally bled to death on your face. Like, these are really uncomfortable, weird scenes in this movie. Like,
which makes it more effective than the book, because
stuff. Yeah.
The book has like a lot of like, it's detailed to like enough to like lead you to the same idea to put the picture in your head, but then just seeing it just makes it much more shocking. So that being the end of Act 1. So Act 2, Dominika's off to training. Lenny the maid is there to help Nina while she's gone. Here's where Nina, the mother, like says that Vanya is a creep and that he's attracted to Dominika. So, that's what it's like. Yeah, don't trust him. She's like, well, I already know that, but now I know my uncle's attracted me, so that's extra weird. But I guess that'll be something to use later. So we'll keep that to the back corner.
Yeah.
Dominika's greeted at State School 4 here by, it's called Matron is the character's name. It's just Charlotte Rampling, who is great. Just a great, she's British, right? That's her whole thing. She's British. She's super British.
Yeah, she's like the most British woman you'll ever meet. And the thing is, she's been in movies since like the 60s, and she was like super hot.
Yeah.
Like probably hotter than Jennifer Lawrence in her day. And still like carries herself as if like, it's like age has nothing. Charlotte Rampling has always been the same actress. It's like now she just has a lot of experience.
Yeah, I don't necessarily like have like roles that stand out with. She's like almost like a character actor. She's done hundreds of things, but you'll just like, oh yeah, her. But like, she's never like a leading person, but she does a great job with what she.
Yeah, she is the best supporting actress in everything. And literally, she's been in movies I think since like the 60s.
Yeah.
I mean, she plays like, what's the most contemporary thing? Oh, she's like the Reverend Mother Mohiam in Dune. Like the lady that gave Paul Atreides the test in the latest, where she held the needle, the gum jabbar to his neck.
Yeah.
And said, animals will pull their hand out for pain, but humans won't. Like, yeah, she's like that lady in everything. And she was also in like Vanishing Point, which is like a 70s car movie. But this was when she was like super hot. And that kind of, I don't know, it's hard to say. It's like evil British women are very hot to me, and I don't know why. It's like the worse they are, the more like it's like, oh, that woman's like crazy.
I don't know. Helen Mirren was kind of the same way, where like her early career, she was like Helen a sex pot, and then as she aged, she just kind of like took on a lot more serious roles, and then because she was so good, they kept giving her roles. It's like, aren't you like 60? It's like, yeah, aren't I a good actress? So like,
yeah, old British ladies are like, that's my thing. Feet. It's like I just like watching old British ladies in movies because it's cool.
Here, Dominika is given an alias to go to the school with, so like nobody knows each other. I don't know, probably a real thing. I have no idea. I've never been to.
I mean, we could talk about this because I've actually done some I've read books about this, and in the 60s and 70s, the KGB had something. They actually called them swallows, not sparrows, which is like in our language is like a weird double entendre for like sex lady operatives. But it wasn't quite like they just had dedicated people that just did sex, because they had because the girls were called swallows, and the men were called ravens,
Yeah.
and that was for homosexual stuff. And in the 60s and 70s, like homosexual like pictures and stuff was a lot more damaging than it is now. So you got to put yourself in that mindset. So when the KGB like had people that were just there to like corrupt ambassadors, and it was mainly like it was looking for gay men.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, especially in like,
Well, they want to be a woman in power, so.
yeah, that too. But you got to remember, like, there was a time when like being homosexual was very damaging to your credibility, whether you were in the West or anywhere else.
And someone might murder you.
Yeah, someone might kill you. So there was a lot more like Raven stuff that went on, but it was more opportunistic than it's like a lot of things with the Soviets. We overestimate their capabilities because it's like, ooh, they have like a secret school and they just train people in sex. And it's like, no, they just train people to be spies who are willing to do anything. And it's like, well, will you have sex with this guy to get, information from him? Yeah, sure. But mostly it was like gay stuff. It wasn't like just beautiful women, because having sex with beautiful women outside of your marriage, like, could be damaging, but it wasn't nearly as condemning as like having sex with another man, if you were a man.
Yeah, but Hollywood's not going to make that movie, Nathan. So
they could make it a historical thing. I mean, it's actually like that was real. Like this stuff was kind of almost like, how would you say? It was like a flight. It's like very James Bond. It's like, the beautiful Russian agent who's like a master of sex I'm gonna, wouldn't that? It's like every guy's fantasy.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh, the guy who was smart enough to make it through like the, Harvard school of, the Kennedy school of being a diplomat and an agent, but he's actually secretly gay. And it's like, now no one wants to see that story because that's just sad. It's like, oh, what horrible people we were, It's like, yeah, that's not popular. And the Americans had elements of this too, where, our two main characters were trained in like KGB, and they were trained to have sex with everyone, men, women, older men, younger women, all that stuff, older women. And that was like, yeah, it didn't really happen like that. It was more like opportunistic when it was like, yeah, Moscow Center says you need to have sex with this guy. It's like, well, I'm a man. It's like, yeah, but you need to do this because your mom needs health care or whatever. It was more like stuff like as portrayed in this movie, but it didn't have anything to do with like lusty ladies that were here to like, they can do stuff with their bodies that no human has ever understood. It's like, no, it was never that cool. But
and it seems like the CIA, knowing absolutely almost nothing other than things I've read that they've been willing to put out there, which is probably also misinformation. They would just get like a sex worker to do that part, and then bust in and steal stuff like off to the side. like the agent doesn't need to do that work. We got other people we can hire to do that work.
Yeah, I mean, the American CIA was, well, this is why these legends formed, because the reality of the Cold War from 1947 till 1991 was the Russians were better at what you called human, which is human intelligence, but they weren't better because the Russians have like a great insight into the human condition and they're compassionate people. They were better at that because we had a wide open society where anyone could come to America and be anything. We didn't follow up on you unless you became a target of state security in America. Then you were exposed to like the most comprehensive, like we had the best Big Brother stuff in the world in America. We still do, but you have to come on the radar of the state.
Yeah.
Like nobody cares if you're just a normal person. Yeah, we've been doing this podcast for 12 years or more, and we've said crazy stuff all the time. We're just normal, like, citizens. Like, we're not part of a group or anything. But yeah, if you come from overseas and try to do stuff here and you fall on the radar of state security, you're screwed. No one can do it better than us in our own country. The Chinese, the Russians, no one can do it better. But the thing is, we're not monitoring everyone. We're monitoring people that fall into a certain category of like, oh, we're going to pay attention to these guys. And then we're actually going to follow you around with cars, tap your phones, watch your internet stuff. We have the best groups in the world to do that here, but you have to come on the radar. Whereas in a lot of these countries then and now, they're just watching everyone all the time. So all your effort is like so diffused over such a wide area that you're not really that effective at it. Whereas like, the Western stuff, the Western intelligence during the Cold War, I mean, the British were better at like human intelligence in Europe than we were, but we were the masters of what you call ELINT, which is electronic intelligence, because we had all the money, all the satellites, we're gonna capture cables. We're going to, like, America was the master of that. Like, oh yeah, we have the best technology to spy on.
What I prefer in my spy novels is the cool tech to do the spy.
Yeah.
It's like, you mean I don't have to talk to somebody and I can get all the information?
Well, yeah, because Americans they say we're naive, and that's kind of true and not true. We're naive and like, what do we think people are capable of? It's like, oh wow, that's like just like 9/11. Like a lot of that was based on naivete. It's like, well, no one would really kill themselves like crashing into a building. That's nuts. We wouldn't do that, so no one else would, and then it happened. And there was a lot of stuff with the Russians where it's like, well, no one would really do that. That's crazy. Like they can't be that bad. It's like, oh yeah, they're that bad because they lived in a society based on starvation, brutality, and bribes. Where we don't have that here. I mean, there's some people that want to make it that way here, but really we don't value that as a society. So, but yeah, that was like why we came up with these like stories about the Russians have like whole cities built that are like American cities, and they teach people to speak pitch perfect English, and they understand everything about sex and violence and everything. It's like, no, the Soviets were never that good because they didn't have to penetrate a society that was completely closed. Like a real cool story would be like getting an American into like Russian society in 1986. Like that would be almost impossible. You're a closed society. You can't do it.
Also, like all of like movies and books, they always overestimate like what training can do for a person. It's like, well, they've had this training, now they're a superhero. It's like, yep, they make no mistakes whatsoever, and the training always kicks in.
Yeah, there's no random like stuff that happens. It's always like, yeah, if X happens, do Y. Always. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way.
So Matron just tells her that, hey, if you don't complete this school, I got to put a bullet in your head. So it's it's Sparrow School.
With the Russians, they know how to motivate people.
It's Sparrow School, where they teach people to manipulate people with seduction and other means. They're also taught like how to pick locks and do some like close-up magic and lift things from people. Whatever.
It's fun.
She's asked to undress in front of the class because the state nourished her body, so they own it now. She doesn't undress here, so
let's talk about this for a little bit, just because I want to say this, because like I said earlier, like I think of Jennifer Lawrence as a teenager in young adult fiction novels that came to the screen, and it's uncomfortable. She does not look super attractive to me in this movie. She seems kind of bony and thin, which is appropriate. Ballerina, it makes sense, but it's like these scenes not only are uncomfortable and weird, but none of the people involved in them are attractive. To me personally, my opinion. Now Jennifer Lawrence looked great in other movies after this, but I think she must have lost like 50 pounds to be in this movie, and not a good 50 because she looked kind of bony.
I don't know. I don't have any complaints, so I get.
I thought she was a little too.
It was uncomfortable. I wouldn't say she's not sexy. The uncomfortableness made it not sexy. It's like, well, it's a rape scene, so I can't enjoy that she's naked. So, and essentially every scene in this movie is a rape scene.
Well, what Daddy Nate is saying, girls, is don't be too scared. I'm not saying that.
Um,
Everyone seemed kind of weird looking in this movie, and I don't know if that was on
oh yeah,
purpose. It just ended up that way.
probably. Well, also they didn't like I don't know. It's cinematography for a Hollywood movie, so you don't shoot things like a porno because that's not what it is. Now, time for the money shots. Like, no, that's not how this works.
That could be it. I mean, maybe they were trying to make us uncomfortable, and for me, it worked. But it also didn't seem. Not only was it not glamorous, it's like none of these people are like really attractive. Like, and not because they're not physically attractive, but because these are just tortured souls. Like, there's nothing cool
Yeah.
about this. Like, who? My question is for me is like, who's having sex under these circumstances? Every one of these circumstances seems like the opposite of sexy or anything germane to like sex you would enjoy. It all seems like brutality. And if they did that on purpose, great. Hats off to them. You made a great movie. I don't think it was really that kind of movie, though. I think they just kind of they made it a little weird.
I'm also trying to think about. I'm also trying to think about like pervy executives. It's like, oh great, we get to see Jennifer Lawrence naked. Like, and maybe they made the scenes as uncomfortable as possible, so it would be like less cool for the execs that are creeps. I have no idea. I'm purely speculating. So.
Yeah, it was creepy. I mean, it was really, I was not comfortable watching this movie. And usually I'm comfortable with anything. It's like, wow, this is art, whatever. But this is like, oh, this is bad.
But yeah, it's for like, essentially like the precedence of Jennifer Lawrence just makes it creepy. It's not like, this is like, I'm not sure if it's her first nude scene or anything, but it's like everything here is like, no, this is not how you want to see Jennifer Lawrence.
I just think of Jennifer Lawrence will eternally be like my son's teenage friend. And when I see stuff like this, I'm like, this is wrong. Now, Jennifer Lawrence is like 30 now, so I probably shouldn't think of her that way, but I don't know, maybe.
We cut to Nate is being taken off of the assignment, or another. He's being taken off of. I can't remember what other assignment he's being taken off of. Then we cut to a montage of training school. Here they have the phrase like everyone is a puzzle of needs, and so they're going through cases determine like people's needs. Here this is where Dominica shines because she's kind of sucked at some other things, but they mostly have her being excelling. But here it's like her looking at something and like, because they have like the example of like, oh, this guy's into young girls and he's like, he wants a daughter, like, and then to like, it's like, oh yeah, she's right. Like when he pays these young women, like he just takes them to lunch. He doesn't have sex with them because that's what this guy wanted.
Yeah.
But of course everyone else was just leaping to the conclusion. It's like, this is a pedo.
Yeah.
Let's see here. And there's the Anya character who like calls someone a degenerate. So then they bring in like a mentally like unwell person who also probably has cerebral palsy or something, and then like they're like, give him a blowjob, and then she cries and doesn't give him a blowjob, and they take him away. It's like, that's super weird. I mean, this whole like training scene is very effective at how extremely uncomfortable and unwilling all this stuff is. Like no one would want to do this, but it's for the good of Russia, so
yeah.
This is all about compromising your values if you had to need to begin with.
Yeah, it's all about oligarchs.
Yeah, and also like, I think the weird thing here is that these are basically supposed to be like the people they could get that are the most beautiful, and like they all look like peasant farmers that had like had their farm destroyed in the war.
Yeah. Yeah, these people are like very World War II looking people.
And so when Anya won't give the blowjob to the mentally disabled guy, this is because I watched this on Freevee, so there's commercials. That's when an Applebee's commercial popped up.
I too had to watch this on Freevee because it was the only way to watch it. Yeah, the commercials in the middle of it are like you cut from this scene to like, it's like a family at a like, come to our water park. It's like, this is so weird. This makes this movie more disturbing probably than it was.
Yeah, it's a thing with like Freevee. There's other stuff like this, but it is very weird to watch like essentially an uncensored movie with television commercials. It's like, that's not how this works. Like this would be cut from the movie. There'd be no swearing, or you'd have dubs or whatever. Um, then we cut to Nate figures out that he's being tailed by Russians, like in America, or where the hell is he? I can't
No, he's
remember.
in Langley, Virginia.
Okay. His boss, now this like piques his boss's interest. Is like, well, maybe it can be useful because apparently they think you're worth trailing. So let's put you back in the field. So they send him back to like Eastern Europe. They send him to Hungary, yeah, because they go to Budapest. Because they're like, well, we can't send you back to Russia, but we'll get you close.
Yeah.
But the Russians are looking for Nate's asset, which I think they mentioned it's called Marble at this point. I'm not sure. I think.
Yeah.
But that's what the nickname for his asset is, or code name for his asset is Marble. Then they cut back to the Sparrow school, and like all the Sparrows have to have sex with like some troops that like recently came back from the front lines or whatever. Which I don't know. Would this be Syria at this time? I'm not sure. Or is just Russia always at a war somewhere?
Yeah, there's always something going on.
Dominica like picks out a guy and kind of gives him a hand job while standing behind him, and then they cut to like the class reviewing her sex tape. It's like, well, you did a good job, but you didn't actually have sex with him, so you're not really committing to the cause now, are you?
Yeah.
And Dominica gets assaulted in the shower, and she beats the guy with a shower handle. And then for some reason, Dominica is weirdly in trouble for being attempted raped and beating up the guy. So then she's like forced to face her rapist, and like he tells her to get undressed, but then she kind of like turns it around and she gets undressed and like tries to make him, but then he can't like get hard. So that's like, you know, an embarrassment for him. It's like, oh, this
manipulates him by like because he wants to do it like, oh, you face away from me.
Yeah.
And she's like, no. She gets on the desk and like takes all her clothes off and just like spread eagle. It's like, yeah, I want you to watch me, and he can't get it up. So she like does a psychological trick, like, you can't look me in the face and do this. You know, it's like I have to be facing away from you, which is like part of their training. It's like learn to anticipate and exploit the weaknesses of other people sexually.
Yeah. Well, yeah, here she says that he doesn't really want to rape her. He wants power or whatever. So
yeah.
Also, presumably all this is being filmed, and presumably all Vanya's seeing all this stuff and being like, "Ha ha, my plan is coming together."
Yeah, there's my niece. Yeah. Go the money shot, Dominica.
So Dominica is being sent to Moscow, but like
basically makes Russians seem like they've just completely abandoned their morals.
Yeah.
Which
so yeah, she gets news she's being sent to Moscow, which essentially she's being taken out of training, so she hasn't completed it. So she's kind of like worried, is like, are you just gonna kill me because like I did something wrong? But they're like, no, we got a job for you. We actually think you did a good job. And it's like, can somebody tell me that? I really need feedback.
Some validation here, because I shaved the guy's head in with like a fixture in a shower, and I want to know that like this is what you want.
Cut to Dominica visits her mother. She gets called away to meet Vanya at some restaurant, or maybe it's later. He wants her to spy on Nate so they can find out who the mole in Russia is. She gets a new name, Katerina Zubkova.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is what I wrote down. The guy says, like, the waiter comes up and he goes, "We'll have 2 of everything," and she's like, "Yes, sir." I was like, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. We don't see it, but I want to see 2 of everything from a fucking restaurant.
I want to do that. I want to go to like the highbrow places. I go like Outback Steakhouse. It's like, well, welcome to the Outback. Good day. Welcome to the Outback. What do you do? 2 of everything on the menu, please, and don't speak to me again. And they just like push a table over, like 2 blooming onions, 2 blooming onions, 2 of the fries, and like $8,000 worth of stuff. Where's the caviar? Yeah, the highbrow places I eat. So.
Let's see here. We're in Budapest now. Dominica arrives at some house for spies or something. I don't know how houses work. It's like, a studio. It's like a studio apartment with like sub apartments on the side, and then yeah, I don't know, it's basically like a college dorm almost.
It's like a wheel. Like there's a central room, and then there's all these side rooms. The sex dungeon room. There's kitchen. There's lesbian room. It's Budapest. Welcome. It's like, wow, that's a weird place.
She meets
use skeleton keys, and it's like weird. It's like, oh, this place has been here since like Kafka wrote his book. Like, okay, cool. I know where I am now.
She meets her new boss who creeps on her, so I just refer to him as the creep as now on. She starts following Nate around.
Yeah, this guy you want to. It's like, I can't wait until this guy is killed. Like you meet him, is like, oh please, somebody shoot this guy in the back.
Yeah, like I don't think I've even met somebody who's that just openly perverted. Like, usually you try to hide it, but like I mean, like there's people like no, there's definitely people like when someone leaves the room and it's like this was what was in my head the whole time. It's like, can you please not do that? But this guy's like, hey, guess what's in my head to the person that the object of their affection.
Yeah, this guy's like unzipping his pants as you're walking in the room. Like, don't even try. You're a spy, right? Subtlety and you just whip it right out, put it on the table. Hey, you like this? It's like, wow, okay. I don't know, but then we read like Charlie Wilson's War, and it's like, yeah, some CIA guys are like that. It's like, I'd like to tell you everything, but I can't do it with her in the room, and even if she took her clohes off, I wouldn't tell you. But I'd like if she took her clothes off, But this guy's like completely different than that.
Well, he's just using his position of power to get things, as apparently his home life is unfulfilling. We don't get that far. That's just my guess.
Colonel Maxim is his name. Budapest section chief for the SVR.
Dominica starts following Nate around. This is like where she's like following him to the pool. She dyes her hair blonde. She joins the pool to like be close to Nate, and she starts spying on him.
I love this section when she joins the pool and they go over all the rules of joining the pool. And it's like, what a horrible place. Rules are like just nightmare. This is it's like a system of rules that like the biggest Dungeons and Dragons nerd would even shiver at. You cannot be here past 10 o'clock. The pool closes at 10 o'clock. If you are here, you will be thrown into oven. It's like, what kind of pool is this? What's going
on here? Foreign pools.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess pools are hard to maintain. You got to keep order. So,
you may not use the gymnasium after 10 p.m. or you'll be shot in head. Chlorine is only made in America with helium, and it's very expensive. You cannot use extra chlorine. Your children will be bled to death. If you put laundry in our. It's like what kind of weird fucking rules are. I don't know. I mean, I haven't joined a pool in a while, so.
We got to Nate laying out who Dominica is to his bosses. Although it's weird because it's later on they're still like revealed like, oh, she's a Sparrow. It's like, wait, didn't you know that now? Like, she's a ballerina. It's something weird. Her uncle.
Oh, not only do they know that, they know who her uncle is.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, we've completely penetrated the SVR, by the way. But we still want you to like play games with this chick. Like she's not she's not a hand grenade with the pin pulled that could be wildly destructive, which anyone who rationally analyzes, like, we're not going to get anything from her but problems. I get it. She's hot and she looks good in the weird bikini she wore to the pool, which is why she did that, by the way. But yeah.
Dominica attends some like business conference. Nate talks with her and they like just lay out that they're both spies, which I guess is kind of fun. It's like, well, we're just going to say this out loud.
Yeah, they're not like it's like that's supposed to be what's cool about this movie is like, oh, they're laying it all, they're putting all the cards on the table. There'll be no deception, which you immediately like, oh, red light in the corner of your eye, like, oh, this is all deception. This is what we're like anything the movie built up for me at this point. Like I said from the beginning, I didn't like this movie. This conversation happens, it's like, Okay, here we go. It's the wheels within wheels shit that we're supposed to be amazed by, which I'm not going to be amazed by because they're clearly establishing here, like all the stuff you think is a secret is not a secret, and we're going to do some subterfuge that's going to, and it's like, oh, disappointing. Not to say that I saw through it or I'm a genius and could put it all together, but I knew it was coming. So this is when the movie like really loses me.
Dominica gets back to the apartment first before her other spy roommate is there, and so she sneaks into her room.
Roommate.
She goes through her stuff, and she's sleeping with America. She's like a
chief of staff for a very important senator.
Which in the book it's even more crazy. In the book, this lady is just a senator.
Oh, okay.
It's also explicitly
she works for what's his name, the guy from Kentucky, and not the senior guy, the younger.
Mitch
She
McConnell?
works for Rand Paul.
Oh, Rand.
I'm just making that up.
Well, no, in the book it's like they explicitly make her like a very like liberal Democrat senator who's like selling out our country for fun or whatever. I don't know. It's weird.
She's basically Hillary Clinton, which was a senator from New York, because that's how the guys think.
Here it's played by Mary Louise Parker, which I would say like is kind of like low for her, but I don't know where she stands. Like, I mean, she had the Weeds TV show for a long time, and I guess I don't know where she is now, but it's like, hey, you're going to play a disposable character in this like kind of a big budget spy movie. But
I think he was probably pitched a bigger role, but then they edited it down.
Yeah, maybe.
It seems like she should have had more scenes.
In the book, or at least in the book on tape, they call her Stephanie Boucher, and then here they call her Boucher. So that's probably correct. So,
yeah,
there's a lot of stuff in the book on tape that seems like I think you pronounced that wrong, but oh well.
Yeah, it's like they gave me a book translated into English from French. Yeah, read these names, Nathan. It's like, oh.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand it. I'm not really complaining. I'm just suspicious. I don't think that's how you're supposed to say it. It's like I've been saying now. There's a tool brand called Knipex. And it's a German tool brand, and I looked it up because I always called it Knipex because, you know, you do the silent K's and a lot of English stuff, and so I assumed it was Knipex. And some people say Knipex, which I think is the coolest way to say it because that sounds like you're almost like you're saying knife, and then you got X in there too. It's like knife X. And then I looked up, and there was like, well, how do you say this? And it's some German lady. It's pronounced Knipex. And so I say Knipex now, and then like sometimes I'll say Knipex around people, and they look at me weird. And I'm in my head, I'm like, I know that's the dumbest way to say it, but this is how the company says it. So
I'm just putting on air. Keep going. I'll be right back.
Dominica goes to the strip club to meet her creepy boss because she's like he sent her a bad report about her, like she's not getting enough work or she's not getting enough intel from Nate. And then like she gets him, she basically pisses him off and gets him to hit her, and then there's some bouncers grab this guy, and there's also a video camera in there, so she's going to use that video footage to blackmail him. So this is supposed to be like checkmate. Now this guy's not going to bother anymore. And then Dominica is outside Nate's house, and she forces herself to cry. She also has a big black eye. And so she like gets rung up, and she comes in there, she's crying, she has a black eye. And so he feels like a genuine concern for her, but there's always like a thing where it's like, well, he's a CIA operative, so maybe that's also subterfuge for him. Maybe that's his good thing, is that he can pretend to care very well. She asks why he left Russia and why he fired the gun off. She tries to kissing him, but he doesn't think it's a good idea, and so he kind of rebukes her advancements because, like, well, you're a Russian spy who's trained in sex stuff, so obviously, like, I'm not going to kiss you. So have a good night. Yeah. Then Vanya shows up again. Dominica uses uses Marta's asset, which is the Stephanie Boucher character, as leverage for some scheme. then Marta, who's the roommate, goes to the creep boss to try to get rid of Dominica by telling, like, oh, she said that like you killed that one mob guy, and so if anybody knows that, they're basically supposed to be killed. Um, and so Dominica gets home next in another scene, and then she's suspicious that Marta isn't there, or at least she's not like blaring music or something. There's really no reason why she would be suspicious other than this is a spy movie.
Yeah, everyone's just Russian. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, automatically they're suspicious.
So she finds Marta like slaughtered in the bathtub. And then the hitman guy runs in and like forces her to like look at the body and like tells her like not to tell secrets. It's like, remember, this was supposed to be you, but now it's a roommate that you don't really care about. Which is kind of a big departure from the book. In the book, I believe, I might have got this wrong. I believe Marta is basically like the what's the name? What's the matron? That lady. Was Sharpling or whatever?
Matron. Yeah.
Matron.
Yeah.
So I believe she is the Marta character in the book. And then it's more of like, here Matron is just kind of like evil. In the book, it's like she's evil, but she did it for a purpose, and she's kind of like known as like the head Sparrow. And then she gets killed in a really awful way where like this guy stabs in her chest with a really sharp knife and like ratchets it all the way up and like cuts her like the aorta artery in her neck and almost splits her in half with a knife, essentially. It's like, that's pretty brutal. Man, that doesn't happen in this movie. That's what happens in the book.
Well, in this movie, though, he is using like skin grafting tools
yeah.
to torture people, which is like, I've never seen that before. It's kind of weird and awful at the same time.
That guy, in the book, that guy is just supposed to be this Hannibal Lecter that's that's Vanya, that's supposed to be the puppet of Vanya. So,
yeah. It's like people so evil, they don't really exist. It's like, well, someone's willing to do that. They're willing to do anything, and you can't trust them. So,
Nate and Dominica talk again. She explains her situation, and so he works her to be like an asset for America. It's like, yeah, the only way you can fix Russia is if you sell them out to us.
Yeah,
which is that's a good selling point because you're never gonna fix Russia, so you're always gonna win that argument.
Yeah, it's like, well, Americans are naive and greedy. It's like, yeah, you want to come to our country at almost any point. I mean, even now when everyone's like, America's it's ebbing as a power. It's an awful place to live. It's like, yeah, well, bring any Russian here and tell them that, and they'll be like, oh, I'm never leaving. It's like, and trust me, I've talked to a lot of Russians, and it's like, yeah, I'm not going back. You guys got your problems here, but holy shit, are you doing way better? I can get milk here 24 hours a day. I drive a car here. It might be 8 years old. I have to fix it all the time, but I have a car. It's like, yeah, that's America.
Dominica initiates sex with Nate after asking him if she can trust him. He's kind of reticent, but I don't know. This is like this whole thing doesn't really work, but it's supposed to be there in the book and in the movie, where it's like, hey, what if spies who are supposed to lie to each other how they really care about each other and have sex? What if they were actually in love? It's like, I don't know, because this didn't work out either.
It would never work for me because she's like a fuck spy. Like, she's not like, oh, she's real good at like, coding or taking pictures clandestinely. No, she is just a sex spy. It's like, well, she wants to have sex with you. No. How about no? Because that's the one thing she's trained at. It's like, oh no, she wants to play a cryptography game with you. If she was like a cryptography expert, it's like, no, because she is going to figure out our codes if I play cryptography with her. But if I put my penis in her, then she has it because she is a sex spy, and that's what they do.
Next day she wakes up to like familiar music here, where she kind of talks about like it's almost like synesthesia, where she hears this music and she sees like red flashes or whatever. That's the only
Greek concerto that is like the first thing she danced to. Okay, yeah.
That's the only kind of like mention of like the vaguely synesthesia thing from the book, although it's here, it's not even talked about that. It's just more about like, yeah, I imagined colors, and it's like
oh, by the way, the only reason I know what concerto that is I read notes about the movie. I don't know that crap. I don't want anyone to be like, oh, here's Nathan acting like he knows stuff he doesn't. It's like, no, I really don't know what that is, but I read the notes. So.
Yeah.
Fuck off, commenters.
Oh, none of you.
Oh, I'm just imagining insults coming my way. It's probably less sophisticated. Like, he's fat, you know. It's like, oh, well, got me. You
Oh
win.
no.
Victory. He's dumb. It's like, well, kind of.
Then Nate lays out what she needs to do to like build up her rep with her bosses. So basically, it's like they're gonna feed their bosses like fake information. Which in
And
the
let
book,
me say something. I don't know if the acting was good or bad here, because Jennifer Lawrence's like flat facial expression here when he's telling her like, "Oh, this is what you need to do to manipulate Russians," is like it's either brilliant acting or she wasn't acting and just didn't respond. I don't know which. I choose to believe that she's like really smart actress, and she's like, "Yeah, dumbass, I know how to manipulate. You're not telling me anything because I am a Russian sex agent thing." So, but I don't know. I was one of those things like I couldn't be sure because I was actually specifically wondering like, why does she look like she's not interested in what he's saying? Oh, because she's not. Because she's, you know,
she's
no,
2 steps ahead of him, so
yeah.
he's just telling her something she already knows.
But I want to know, Jennifer Lawrence, email me and let me know.
Come on, J-Law. Write into Verhoeven Effect at gmail.com.
Please do. I'd be afraid to talk to her. I guess she's like massively intelligent, like genius level IQ people. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't want to say anything to her because she's way too smart. She's like, what's his name? Tarantino, where he's got this like crazy IQ. And
I don't know. They say that about James Woods too, and he's also like he's an amazing idiot as well.
No, James Wood is truly a genius. He's the only person I follow on Twitter anymore because I love Twitter. I don't know if it's an act or not. I'm hoping it is, because if it is, it's like this is amazing. Because I like to do the same stuff, but just under different names. But if he's doing this under his own name, it's like that's a level of confidence I'll never. But anyway.
They bring Dominica into like the CIA bosses and they run a lie detector test on her, which is kind of interesting. It's just like weird cords like strapped across her chest
to a computer.
Yeah.
And as I've learned from all my like CIA training, like I'm just joking there, but yeah, lie detector tests are bullshit. As long as you don't drink coffee and get a good night's sleep, you're cool.
Yeah.
Because lie detector tests depend on and I don't know if that's true or not, but I know lie detector tests depend on the social contract to detect you. And if you don't have a problem lying to people, like looking people straight in the eye and lying to them, they'll never catch you. I mean, we had people betraying our country for years and in high positions in the FBI and CIA, and they took lie detector tests all the time. And they're like, "No, sir, I love America, and I would never betray them for a dime." You know, and it's like, oh yeah, they were just completely, got people killed and everything because they were. Who was the guy in the CIA that did that? I don't know. I always think about the people that compromised our naval codes. The Walker family.
Yeah.
But yeah, those people, like all those people got lie detector tests all the time because they held high positions and security clearances or whatever. I mean, look at our modern thing. We have people with security clearances that are sharing it with their Call of Duty buddies on like, what was that, Discord or whatever. Yeah. It's like, yeah, these people have top security clearances.
Because they really wanted to impress teenagers. Like, oh,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, I'm like a 20-year-old in like the state guard, or what is it called? The National Guard of Massachusetts. And by some reason I have a top secret security clearance. So I'm going to share with you. And by the way, I read it because I'm that guy. I know what he shared. It's like, oh, it's only a slightly more sober assessment of what's going on in Ukraine than what we're being told, by the media. It's like there's no like state secrets revealed there. At least not the stuff I read. It's just,
and I have no top secret anything, so I can tell you anything.
Yeah, I can just read the stuff that was illegally published for my own amusement because I do things like that all the time. But I don't know how to interpret it. Like if there's reading between the lines going on there, well, I'm gonna miss it. But yeah.
But yeah, there's ways you can use a lie detector test scientifically to kind of get information to help you along. But this thing where it's like, it's a hard yes, or no, and it's a hard like this is either true or false. Like that stuff is like it's why they don't allow it in court. But I guess
Yeah.
if you're a spy, you kind of have to work on a lot of things that with incomplete information will make a lot of inference. So maybe it's helpful that way to just speed things along. It's like, you know, like which hunch are we gonna jump at? Because neither of them have enough information anyway. So
Yeah, what are we gonna like follow our gut on? And it like if this works out, we're gonna like, oh, they're geniuses. And if it doesn't, it's like, well, they're idiots.
Yeah, I mean,
they
it's
junk science, and
it's just the stock market for espionage, where it's the same thing. Like stockbrokers, like as much as they want you to make you think that they're following facts and all this stuff, it's just intuition that they're using.
yeah, they're full of shit. I mean, remember when Jon Stewart tore the guy apart? Who's the guy on MSN or no on CNBC? Kramer.
Yeah.
When Jon Stewart was playing the stuff back about, oh, you should invest in this or whatever, and it was a complete bomb. And he's like, so were you lying to people, Kramer? And oh, we had bad information. It's like, oh, you're just full of shit. You're just entertaining. You're entertaining people in a stockbroker way. I mean, I've always had a weird relationship with. I know a guy who can give lie detectors that will like for the state police of Michigan, like, and I've always wanted him to, and he refuses. I was like, you should give me one. I want to try to, like, you know, play games with it or whatever. I want to know. And he's like, look, Nathan, a lie detector test is not a way to find out about yourself. It's like, but I want to know if I can beat it. And he's like, you will always beat it if you're willing to deceive it. Not just me, anyone. It's like, if you're willing to deceive it, you will beat it. Because there's no, if I ask you a bunch of questions and you're completely deceptive with me, Nathan, you're always going to win because there's nothing on the line for you. It's just an exercise. Like, you're not really being accused of something where you have to deceive me to not, you know, have the investigation proceed further. So you're always going to win under that circumstance. But he's like, you know, but he was kind of like hedging that bet by saying, but if it really mattered, you wouldn't. And it's like, no, I want to know, like, if I could or not. I just because I like to know things about like that. But he refused.
I want to know what the lie detector test is.
Well, it's just like remember we had like you've heard about the legendary truth serum,
yeah,
like sodium pentothal. It's like, yeah, if you give someone sodium pentothal, they'll be about as drunk as I am right now, and you can ask them questions, and they like may tell you the truth because their inhibitions were lowered. You know, essentially in the same way that alcohol does, but a lot faster. And it's like, yeah, it's like, it's not, none of this stuff is like proof of that's what was interesting in the book about the whole synesthesia thing, where it's like, I can see people's feelings, you know, but if they're red or they're yellow or whatever, it's like, oh, if that was real, it'd be a nightmare. Like, if you lived in a world where you couldn't deceive people, it would be a really weird place.
She asks the CIA for money and then uses the senator chief of staff as like collateral. It's like, I got this information, so give me this money.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird at this moment. It's like, why does she need this money and what she's going to be this? But there are things going on throughout this where there's kind of things happening. You're like, what's going on here? And they'll have a flashback at the end to tell you exactly what's going on. Which in some movies,
the annoying thing about this movie to me,
sometimes that works sometimes that works in movies, sometimes it doesn't. Here it didn't really. It's like, oh, that's what was going on. I mean, there was like, hey, we weave this, you know, we weave this subtle narrative throughout. but like
it wasn't subtle. It was like, well, I knew something was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, you just didn't know what, and then they reveal it. And sometimes, you know, that's like, oh man, and then other times it's like, so?
Yeah.
So just, you know, it only works if you're invested in the film. It doesn't actually, like, the cleverness of it doesn't matter. It's just whether people care or not.
Yeah.
So Dominica is like running an operation for the CIA when her creep boss shows up. She meets with Stephanie. She shows off photos of her and Marta having sex, and she says that, like, and so she's there to, like, complete the bribe, so she's gonna give her like 250 grand to sell out state secrets. Dominica gets some discs from Stephanie, like old floppy discs. It's like,
That
which
was
is
the
kind of,
weirdest. Like, you
which
guys
I did.
love Doom 1? What are you doing?
Yeah, which I don't know. Like in one way, it's like, well, that's what do you call that? Not what I would say, anarchist. What's the thing where it's like it doesn't.
Anachronistic.
That's anachronistic. But then I was thinking about like, well, there's are like some old secret things that they just run on old technology, so it's like, so that it would like there is some truth to that. It's like, oh yeah, like so this might be just the program running this thing. It's like they still use floppy disks, but it was
Oh,
just
it's like when the people from 60 Minutes went to the missile silos and they're like, "Yep, time to load the program," and they pulled a floppy disk out of a pizza box. And she was like, "Oh my God, why do you use such old stuff?" You know, she didn't say crap, but it's like that's
Yeah.
what was implied. It's like no one can hack this. No one even knows what it is anymore. Our launch system speaks Cobalt or something. Nobody uses that language anymore. And it's not connected to anything external. It's just like we have to put this disk in every 2 hours of the missile. I didn't say that, but that would have been if they were like just filling this lady from 60 Minutes with like horrible doubt. Like you have to enter this code every so often or it launches. We can't stop it anymore. Like, huh? What? But nobody has fun like that.
So Dominica has to swap these discs for some CIA planted discs, and the whole dilemma here is that the boss is watching, and also there's the desk is kind of tricky to open it for some reason.
Yeah,
the hidden drawer.
You wouldn't do that at all. You would put them in like a coaster on the desk where you could just grab the stack and switch them out. You wouldn't be like, oh, you got to count them and put a rubber band around. Like no one's doing it. I wouldn't do that, and I'm just a low-level criminal. It's like state security at the highest level, and they're like, "No, hit it with your knee on the left side," and it click. I hate this movie.
Dominica and her creep boss leave. They tell Stephanie to like stay there for an hour, but then she just like waits like I don't know like a minute, and she's like, "I'm getting out. I'm taking the $250,000 and getting out of here." And then she gets out of the hotel, and then she sees that she's being spotted, and then she just dumps the 250 grand in a garbage can and starts walking away. But then she sees like another tail, and then is like starts going the other way, and then just gets hit by a truck, and it's like, well, she's done with the movie. So
I actually thought that truck hit was like, oh, did state security like did the SVR like kill her?
Yeah.
No, it was just random. It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
I do like the thing between her and Colonel Maxim where she like thinks he's like drink service.
Yeah.
She's like, just fill this cup with vodka, and he's like talking in Russian, like, would you tell this bitch to get her own fucking drink? You know, it's constantly like this guy's hateful on every level. Because when someone who's that wretched an alcoholic, where they're like, fill this rocks tumbler with vodka. I don't even drink like that. It's like, oh, this lady is gone. It's like, oh, please, I feel so sorry. Here, have this. Just drink directly from the bottle.
And so Stephanie died and getting trailed by the CIA. This alerts the Russians that like, hey, Dominica is doing something here, because immediately our asset was sold out to the CIA, so it must be Dominica's fault. Which
and my question is, like an intelligence agent that I am, is like, where'd that $250,000 go? Like somebody gets it out of the crack. You know what? I'm retiring.
Well, presumably an American agent took it, so.
Boo. Well, I want to be that American agent. Like, wait, hey, where's the money? I don't know.
It's like when we got the Saddam's like semis full of like $5 million. It's like, weren't there two of these? Nope.
Well, you remember the movie, the weird Michael Mann movie I like, The Keep?
Yeah.
About the guys that dug like the silver crosses out of the wall and they released Satan or whatever. That's based on like Americans. Like they had these giant crosses in the wall, and the Americans just took like axes to it. Like, we got to get this silver out of the walls. It was like 500 years old, and like people got indicted all the way up to like officer rank for allowing that to happen. That's what that movie's based on, is Americans occupying Germany. It's like, How do we get this silver out of the wall? Just take an axe to it. Doesn't matter. It's been there forever, and it's a work of art. Just a bunch of Appalachian, American soldiers. Like, yeah, go ahead and knock it out with an axe.
So Dominica's in trouble. So she's being taken to Moscow by airport. So Nate rushes to the airport to try to like get her before she's whisked away to some Russian hellhole. But Dominica sees him and she just kind of like nods him off, like, go away, like this will settle itself. Like, I swear to you.
Love the Aeroflot attendant that like takes them right through security and waves them through. It's like, oh, that's so like 80s Cold War.
Yeah.
Because the Aeroflot attendant had just a cold, typical cold Russian woman, with bright red lipstick and eyes like a husky, like those dogs, the husky, no soul behind it. It's like, I'm just walking these people through.
But she did look like a lady that'd be on a poster. Like, great look. No life behind the eyes.
just a great like Aeroflot, like flight attendant from the 80s. Like, yeah, I'll do anything. These people are going to be marched into an oven. I'm here to do it. Like, there's nothing behind these eyes. Loved it. Great scene.
So then we cut to the Russian hellhole where she's being interrogated. They strap her naked to a chair where they have like water constantly poured on her, and also the room is being air conditioned the whole time. So that's what the whole thing, which I only knew that from the book, so I knew that's what was going on there.
I got real Solzhenitsyn vibes from this, and also like American Enhanced Interrogation, the 2000s vibes from this.
Although nowadays, getting put in a room and had water dumped on you with air conditioning, we just call that cryotherapy, and it's very healthy for you.
Expensive. It reduces swelling. Yeah. Hey man, I can lift weights. I'm telling you, buddy.
I mean, she's about to get a lot of bruises, so they're actually helping her.
Reduces swelling. It's all pro science now.
Also, they throw some metal music in there, and she screams, but just a little bit.
Yeah. Again, this is American Enhanced Interrogation. Because we tortured a few people after 9/11, Hollywood thinks like, oh, we're the Russians now. Well, you don't know shit about history, do you?
Then she's being interrogated. She's strapped to a chair. She has clothes on here, and then in between questions, they just like put a pillow on her and beat her with a club.
Yeah, I like that. That was kind of like weird. It's like, does that work? I don't know. Honey, come here.
I don't know. I was wondering if that was like the oranges thing, where it's like it was like an old joke about child abuse, where it's like use a bag of oranges because it doesn't leave bruises.
I've never heard that. What is this?
You just beat your children with a bag of oranges, like it'll hurt, but it doesn't leave bruises.
Now my kid's like 20 and like twice as strong. More shit. I should have done this before Grayson like started like free pressing like 200 pounds. Damn it. Come here, bring the oranges.
Then they show a video of her of the interrogator killing the creep boss by asking the same questions she's about to ask. But here it's the same thing, though she says no, she didn't like sell out her asset, or doesn't know who. I forget the question is, but the interrogator pulls the trigger and it's empty. And then she vomits on the table.
Yeah.
Which, it's appropriate reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had a loaded. Well, I'm not going to talk about it, but anyway.
Then Vanya shows up. She asks to make it stop, and then she's able to convince Vanya that like her being beaten up will give her credibility with the CIA. So like, no, put me back out as an asset. Like, trust me, it'll work. And he's like, okay,
yeah.
But can we beat you up a little bit more? Like, I really need to add to my porno collection. So. That seems what he's getting out of this.
I don't know what he's getting out of it. By the end of this movie, I'm like, oh, good, he's dead.
So that's the end of Act 2. Yeah, Act 3, Dominica goes home. Here she's so suspicious that she won't even tell her mom the truth, which is actually like they don't make a bullet point of this. It's actually a very sad scene because the only reason she's doing all of this is so her mom can have a stay-at-home maid.
Yeah. Essentially, this movie is about the American healthcare system.
Yeah.
With the Soviet Union. Well, I like how her and her mom are there, and they're both equally as messed up, just for different reasons.
Yeah.
Her mom has a degenerative neuromuscular disease, and she's just been tortured in a gulag for I don't know, a week, a month, I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're both kind of like frail women in this Moscow apartment. It's like, wow, this is a really horrible thing.
Dominica breaks into Vanya's house and meets him there. Then she like seduces him for a moment, and then just like, see, I can do this anytime, and then just like leaves. Just putting the cherry on the top. It's like, see, this is basically incest, even though it's not exactly. It's like my brother was your dad, and you should be off limits, but I have weird power and no backstory, so I'm just evil for no reason.
What did Maxim call it? Like the Sparrows have, you're going to have to edit this. I'm sorry, but I gotta say, he was like, oh, you have or no, I'm doing
the magic pussy.
Yeah, I'm trying to do magic pussy in a Russian accent. For some reason, my Russian accent's left me. Yeah. But yeah, that's
Sparrows. You have the magic. No, that's more Italian. The magic pussy.
Oh yeah, it's like I'm becoming French now. Oh, the magic pussy. Yeah, I can't do it. Anyway, whatever. It's a weird. It's another reason I don't like this movie. The creepy like incest stuff that goes on.
She meets with Nate, who hugs her. So, it's like, hey, you're supposed to be dead. Obviously, you've been beaten. So, thank God you're alive.
Let's have a hug. The most normal thing that happens between a man and a woman in this whole movie. It's like, hey, sorry, God.
And again, this is kind of supposed to sell their whole relationship. Like, he actually cares about her. And it's like, no, he's a CIA guy.
No, he doesn't. She doesn't care about
him.
He
can convince himself that he cares about her for his role in the CIA. It doesn't mean they actually care about each other.
And she's like Agent Fuck. So it's like, she doesn't care about him. I'm not convinced that any of these people care about anything.
She makes a request to go to America and get her mom out and a bunch of money. Then they have sex. We cut to the next day. Dominica wakes up and she walks in the next room, and Nate's being choked by Matoran, the evil, the evil guy.
The Hannibal Lecter of the SVR.
And then she like snaps to, and then she like assists in tying Nate down. It's like, because it's like, well, this is the role I gotta play. So, and then Matoran gets out his bag of tools with just various knives and stuff, like, some whatever
playing devices.
Yeah, including a skin grafting tool that uses to peel layers of skin off, like, one layer at a time.
So this actor's name is Sebastian Hulk. Hulk with some kind of umlauts over the top.
Okay, Hulk.
Yeah. So he's German.
Yeah, this guy's
been in a lot of stuff too. I think he's always been a bad guy because he just looks evil.
Yeah, he looks like a bad guy. Yeah. There's a German F1 driver named Nico Hulkenberg. So
okay.
Although when you hear him say his name, it's like Nico Hulkenberg.
Of course it is. Sometimes I want to ask the Germans, like, are you making this unnecessarily complicated? Because our language is also a Germanic language, and we don't pronounce anything this way.
But yeah, here's where the guy explains like how evil this like skin flailing tool is. It's like, we're just gonna go down one layer at a time till we hit bone. And I'll give you some drugs so you can feel even more pain.
Yeah.
And then Dominica takes the device and she starts flailing some skin off while asking for the name of his informant. And then she hits Matoran with it, and then like a knife fight ensues. Everybody gets slashed.
Oh yeah, this guy's like cutting the hell out of people. Like they're like using their arms to defend from the knife, and it's like, and these are like deep cuts. Like, oh, you just hit the median artery, you're gonna bleed out.
But then
by the way, those tools that are used to graft skin, they won't cut through muscle.
Oh, okay.
Can't go down to the bone with them. It's nonsense, and people need to know.
He modified it, Nathan. He's got nothing but
he modified. Right.
Just took a wood planer and some extra
Jeez.
care.
They should have used the wood planer sound effect. It's like that would have been more effective.
Dominica like slashes like his Achilles heel. He tries to step and then falls on the ground right where Dominica can just stab him in the throat and or other things. Yeah, she kills him dead pretty good. So.
Yeah. I mean, she does everything. She does like a lot of body strikes, which like the rib cage is way more effective against that than what you realize. Because the best thing to do is to go right here because this is all soft and it goes right up into the brain. But nobody does that. And I don't know if she had a dagger or not because you have to have a dagger to do that. That's why daggers are not legal anywhere because it's really kill people with them. But
so we cut to Dominica wakes up in a hospital. Here, Korchnoi shows up. He knows that she killed Matoran, and then he talks about I forget what his wife died like over like it's kind of like bureaucracy bickering. Or whatever.
She couldn't get cancer treatment essentially.
Okay, so this is why Korchnoi hates Russia, and so he's the Russian mole.
Again, this is just a polemic about the American healthcare system. But nobody in America has betrayed our government over healthcare. Which if we had, it would be a more compelling argument, and we wouldn't allow the system to continue the way we
So basically, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be a thing. It's like, oh, like Korchnoi is the mole, but the whole time he's been trying to kill her. Like, isn't that like against his? I don't know. It's just kind of, it's supposed to be like he's so far he's supposed to be the guy who's so evil that he wouldn't be the mole, and so now he's the mole. And like, isn't that amazing? It's like,
that's why this movie sucks. Like this, but, yeah.
I mean, the only reason it works at all is that it's just Jeremy Irons. It's like, okay, that's kind of neat for Jeremy Irons. I don't know if it works for the movie, but yeah.
Well, that's the whole strength of this movie is like performances of Jennifer Lawrence, Joel Egerton, Jeremy Irons. It's like this movie does not work on its own, and it was based on a pretty solid book, but it didn't follow through with any of that.
He offers up like basically that she turns him in so she can take his spot in the government because like that'll make you look great.
More legacy. Even though like taking care of her mother is her sole motivation, and her sicko uncle being moved off the board, which is predictably like going to happen later. Yeah. So betraying like the Russians is like not really in her interest. But yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing this would be more like generic and American is if like if Dominica had a daughter, she needed to put through college at the same time.
Yeah, I got to pay for mom's MS treatment and put my daughter through. Like these are the two things that are completely unaffordable in the American system, which is ironic because it's like we're the wealthiest country in the world by like a factor of 6, but
but it's
our
like
only choice is to become more like the Soviets and become communist because that's how it's portrayed to us. Like we couldn't just make incremental adjustments in our tax code or anything. It wouldn't even affect most people. But yeah, go ahead.
But like in movies, that's like almost the main reason why people compromise their morals is healthcare stuff they need to pay for and college stuff.
Oh, that's why Boucher was like selling her country out.
Yeah, she needed to put her daughter through college.
She's got to get through I don't know, one of those
like Harvard or something schools. Like that. Yeah.
No, it wasn't even that. It was like the other expensive schools like Georgetown and
Brown or something.
Yeah, what's the other Dartmouth is like like a really expensive school nobody hears about, but it's like super expensive. It's an Ivy League school, and it's like, yeah. Oh well, we should know. We have never mind. Go ahead.
Also, Korchnoi sent Matoran after her to force her hand or whatever. So that's again makes him like, oh, you're really bad, but I guess for good reasons, but not.
Yeah, thanks for forcing my hand by like I have deep scars in my body that will never heal because this guy like went after me like a knife ninja and like literally like beat me to death. It's like cool.
Here's where I get kind of confused. I think Dominica goes to the Russian embassy in Budapest to like turn herself in. And then she politics her way to sell out Korchnoi to Zarkov. At least that's what we think. Or Zakharov, yeah.
Zakharov, yeah, played by Syrian Hands, the Irish actor who has played every Russian in every movie, Sum of All Fears to the
Yeah.
present state. And he's obviously, to me, it's like, that's an Irish dude. But everyone else, it's like, oh, he looks Russian. It's like, no, he doesn't, but okay.
Oh, he just has a scowl about him that I don't know. He can make
I
him...
mean, he has a depth as an actor. He's like, yeah, he's like one of those Irish actors that can like look like anyone. Because for some reason the actual Irish have a talent for that. Like, oh, I am a Russian, I'm a British guy, I'm a Scottish guy, I'm a Frenchman, because they can always do that.
Korchnoi gets home and leaves his door open, presumably like, well, they're gonna come in and kill me anyways. Like, why make it hard for them? Yeah. He pops a cigar and I think whiskey. You think it'd be vodka, but I think he puts whiskey in. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, because remember he has the really expensive eyewear, so he probably likes foreign things.
Okay.
Expensive American whiskey.
Dominica is like cuffed and she's like being handed over to the Americans. This is where I'm kind of confused. Because they're having like a prisoner exchange, and you think it's gonna be Korchnoi, but it ends up being Vanya, and and he's being traded for Dominica, and so we get a flashback where like
Dominica is supposed to confirm that like, oh, he's the mole as the exchange goes on.
Yeah,
and everyone thinks this is legit. It's like, except like anyone who's watched the movie and has an IQ above 70, but everyone else is like, yeah, let's do this.
Well, we get a flashback and all the things is like, why is she doing that? Then comes together and it's like, and they're showing you some things you have seen and then a bunch of things that you haven't seen at all because they needed to hold some back. So this could be a surprise.
But it's not a surprise because they actually revealed it. You just don't know the mechanism.
Yeah.
It's like, I know there's a mousetrap there. I just don't know how it works. Now I'm being shown, oh, this is how it works. That's why this movie sucks.
And then while they're handed off, there's a Russian sniper off to the sides that shoots Vanya dead, and Dominica's rushing the Russian helicopter, and they leave.
So now her and Korchnoi can both be like the super moles.
Yeah.
And Nate Nash can have like a career.
Yeah.
Like, I run both of these guys, like the most important cardinals of the Kremlin times 2. It's like even better.
Well, this was a series, and there's other books. There's like 2 more, and there's like I think one of them's called the Kremlin Candidate or something like that. So I can only imagine.
Trump. Yeah, the Ukraine invasion doesn't happen in this universe. Americans have so completely infiltrated the Russian government that Putin just screws this woman forever and never invades Crimea.
So we got like a kind of like an end of Star Wars scene where Dominica like receives a medal and accolades, and Korchnoi's there and the Sparrow teacher's there, all smiling like, "Yay, you did it for Russia!"
and it's like it's the typical Russian uniforms where everyone's like festooned in medals. I mean, the best example of that was the guy. Remember the Death of Stalin?
I know about it. I've never seen it though. But
the guy that played the Russian general who basically won World War II for the Russians. Again, remember I talked earlier about how we'll win the war on a mountain, literal mountain of corpses. Like, yeah, that guy. What's his name? It's not Kryuchkov. Zhukov, I think. Yeah, he literally had a uniform with like, there were so many medals on it, like he was stooped. Because the Russians like doing that. I don't know of any other country in the world where people have like medals like that, but the Russians love it. Because I mean, you know about American military uniforms, like even people that win like massive medal, like they're not just like festooned all the way across.
No, like there's even a thing where it's like I'm not sure what technically is. I think you're only supposed to have like 3 layers of medals. So some people have so many medals and stuff that you don't even know it because they're not allowed to wear all of them. You just wear your most important ones.
Like if you win like the big one, the Congressional Medal of Honor, like that goes around your neck, and that's like a device right here. But that's the only thing that's allowed to be like that.
Yes.
So that's like, always display that one because that's the big one. Because most people that win that are dead. So if you're alive and you win that, good job.
And you got to salute people who have that.
Oh yeah,
that's like I think that's it's like one of the few situations where like people you'd have to salute enlisted people. So
So, like, if a lance corporal in the Marines won the Congressional Medal of Honor, like a general would have to salute him.
yeah, they'd have to salute each other.
Oh, that's actually kind of cool because if you have to do the insane things it takes to win a Congressional Medal of Honor, you probably just, and you're alive, you probably just, yeah. Because I think that's among foreign like awards, like the U.S. Congressional Medal of Honor had like the highest number of recipients are deceased people. I think that's one that like it stands out. Is like, most people who win this are dead because the standards are so incredibly high,
I
and the
believe
number of witnesses required are incredibly high.
because I believe, as far as I know, but I think there's only 2 living Marines from the current or most recent wars.
Yeah, the most recent one
that have Medal of Honors. I think there's only 2 living ones.
What about the ones that fought in the Time Wars?
Well, it's it's the Schrodinger's cat of Medal of Honor.
Did you win it or didn't you? You won't know. I'll die if you do. So, or I won't. I don't want to take the chance.
Then we cut to Dominica. She's watching the ballet, but like leaves before it finishes. So this is basically her like last like, well, ballet is gone. This is the last look at it.
Now I'm a swallow or a sparrow or well, I'm also a.
It should be beyond that, yeah. Also, the thing is, like, she now is basically like in this weird political military thing, even though she was never technically in the military.
Yeah. That's why I said it like Russia, like where it's like we clearly, like in America, in the UK, and all, we have a clear delineation between like military and civilian stuff, but in like Russia, it all just smears together. It's like, oh, you went to class for 3 months? Well, here's a uniform. You're like in the military. And it's not just in this movie, it's in real life. It's like, because I know like in the CIA, like they have military ranks, like but they don't actually like correspond to anything in the military. It's just a way to understand.
Well, it's like you like there's civilian ranks that would have similar ranks to what they are in the military. It's just like, it's kind of like you're on the same pay scale level. It's like, so
yeah.
How subordinate or are we to each other? That's basically the only reason for it, and how much you get paid, essentially. So that's the only difference.
Which is the American dream. It's like really what we determine is like how much money you make.
It's like, oh, you're a civilian equivalent of an E4, so that means I don't really have to listen to you, but I kind of have to take you seriously. So that's kind of the only delineation. So, because you have stuff like that where it's like, like, well, this, someone's in a fob somewhere and some CIA person shows up. It's like, well, how senior are they? And it's like, well, they're this rank in the CIA. So like, oh, so we have to listen to them. It's like, well, they wouldn't send anybody out we wouldn't listen to. So it's so.
Well, my favorite are the ones where I read about the stories about, oh, you're like a 2-star general for the Pentagon in acquisitions. It's like, oh, who are you? Oh, I'm an account executive for like, let's just pick like General Dynamics. I was like, I just graduated Harvard and I'm 28. You have to kiss my ass because I'm going to get you the good gig after hire working for the company where I'm controlling this account. It's like, those are my favorite ones. It's like, oh, you have like a general officer's uniform in the Army. I have like a suit from Armani, but you have to respect this suit more than any command structure, because I'm your pension. Those are strange relationships.
But that's actually the American dream. It's like,
that's the real life.
Hey, how do I not have to pay dues? Where's the real meritocracy? That's what I want.
Oh, if you can afford a $5,000 suit, you're not paying any dues. That's why I've always wanted a $5,000 suit, because it's like, what doors could this conceivably open for me as an idiot? As someone who knows like enough to bullshit people, but not really any real information. How far could I go? I bet you I could go pretty damn far as long as I like shaved and like wore the suit right. So someday I'm going to get a used $5,000 suit from someone who's desperate and like see what doors open for me. Because even the cheap suits I wear, like, people treat me different. Like, I have nice suits, but not to anyone who knows anything about them. It's like, oh yeah, people call me sir and open the door for me. It's like, why are you doing this? Yeah.
Dominica's back in her lonely apartment. Like, it even has like a CRT television. It's like, that just rushes super behind the times.
Yeah, I love that. Like the big TV, and her and her mom are eating like probably like, you know, bone broth soup with some bread.
The lap of luxury.
Yeah. But I'm not paying for this apartment, the bullshit.
And then she gets a call. It's like music on the other end, so she knows it's from Nate. So that's supposed to be like this. They still exist in each other's thoughts. It's not love, but it's something.
Yeah, it's something. It's like, I only pay this piano concerto over the phone for the, you know, screw spy that I knew that clearly lied to me the whole time and lied to everyone else, but kept her mom, you know, on the.
Well, like in the book, her whole thing is supposed to be like she generally believes in Russia, or at least the people, and then she figures out, like, even through family connections, all this stuff is that, like, oh, corruption is far and abound, and like the only way I can fix that is if I use the Americans to my advantage to fix it. And so, like, you know, they're all using each other. So
But the Americans are a little more like decent or legit.
Yeah.
Which is like the fallacy of the story. It's like, no, they're not. They're just playing a different game.
So it fades out, and then we get the titles Red Sparrow, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie sucked. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I also think the book is fine. I think I finally reached a point where it's like, the book is technically well written. It's just done in a way that's like, I've now noticed the formula to it, and now I dislike it. And it's a very, you know, it's like Stephen King writes this way. Lots of people write this way, where there's like every moment, every character is just nothing but backstory and training. Yeah. So any moment that happens, it's like someone remembers a flashback of, like, you know, like my parents died and I lived with my uncle and he taught me this thing, and in this one moment it's going to become useful, or the training kicks in. It's like, that's not a character. Why don't you give them novel situations that they have to solve with skills they don't have?
Yeah, I want my characters to fail a few times.
Or at least be interesting, where it's like, oh, they're just quirky, and I loved it, like when this character's in a scene. No, these are just all, there's just all people with backstory and training, and I don't care that they exist. Which is, but like, this is all just kind of like, you know, like you're saying, like espionage with human psyche and stuff like that. Whereas if they had a bunch of cool tech in it, I would have liked it better, probably, because I just like cool tech stuff. So,
well, yeah, I want to believe my intelligence service is like, I'm getting my money's worth. Like when I don't get a tax return next year, I want to know it's like, well, at least it's money well spent. I don't want to think about a bunch of people having awkward, like weird eye contact sex when they know, like, the one lady's a screw spy and the guy's like sort of incompetent. It's like, well, we're just overmatched by the Russians. Their screw spies are far superior to our shoot the gun into the ground guys.
But it's a long movie. It's on Freevee, so you can watch it for free with commercials.
You don't have to pay for it.
It's, yeah, like there's two other books. Somehow I don't think they're going to complete. I mean, it seemed like this wanted to be like, hey, what if we made the girl with the dragon tattoo, but with Jennifer Lawrence? Like, that's kind of seemed what this movie wanted.
Yeah, okay, I get that vibe. Yeah. Yeah, I think this movie wanted to capitalize on the you know, the star power in it.
Yeah.
But it like did, for me, it backfired. It made it like weird.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, I don't want the catching fire girl to, I don't want the guy who shot Cornelius Snow with an arrow to end up there.
But I just wish they would have done the synesthesia thing, because that seemed like, oh, that'd be a cool thing when they turn this into a movie, and they're like, let's ditch that.
Yeah, I love it. Like, let's make mental illness into a superpower. Like, they didn't do it though.
Well, I could just imagine like how visually interesting that would be. Like I know it could be annoying, but at least try it. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the main point of the book. What made her interesting in the book was not that she was this like vaguely sexy ballerina. I mean, if you're into like chicks with anorexia, I guess she was sexy, but it's like no,
Well, in the book they go to a lot of detail to like, yeah, she's thin, but she has huge boobs. So
yeah,
for a thin girl.
which in real life looks weird. It's called tits on a stick. Nobody likes it, really. I mean, some people do, but it's like, yeah. I'm a meat, it's like you got to have meat on the bones. I'm a meat on the bones guy. It's like you can't just, these chicks that like only eat brown rice and run 5 miles a day are not sexy.
Well, the camera adds, when you're shooting widescreen, it makes people slightly bigger, so everyone's just got to be extra thin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Again, I don't know why I forget this every fucking time.
I was waiting for it. I wouldn't let you go without talking about it.
All right, we're sending a probe into space containing scenes from the imperfect collection that is the Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what scene are we shoving into space?
Well, let's see. Vidra's going to want to merge with the creator on this one. The opening scene where the guy like jumps into her leg and breaks it.
Okay.
That's the whole damn movie. It's like the Russian state will crush you and you'll have to rebuild yourself with sex and violence and betrayal, because that's what living in Russia is. Read any novel.
If you like what you heard, and how can you can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. You can rate us you can rate our podcast whatever platform of your choice, whatever you want. Remember, the algorithm only listens to the highest ratings. Remember, you control the algorithm doesn't control you. We also have listener support at verhoeveneffect.com, where you can support us on a monthly stipend either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. We're also at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect, Facebook Verhoeven Effect, where you can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both this and that show live and unedited. Although I think you need to subscribe. I need to work on some stuff. There's a weird thing when you go to the page and it's like videos. It's not, you need to go to like the live section for like the recent stuff, and sometimes stuff doesn't show up there. So I need to reorganize some things. But if you subscribe, you'll get a notification. Oh, and click the bell or whatever. You'll get a notification when we're live. So
I need to do that. I need to watch this show sometime. Or not. I'll become really self-critical.
And you can find t-shirts.
So drunk.
You can find our t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/greedfactory. You can get a Verhoeven Effect t-shirt or an American Greed Factory t-shirt if you would like. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.